Flair. We're living the can.
Well, everybody, Happy New Year. Welcome back to another episode of Fuji's Philly Flair. Tonight, I want to welcome Mr. Joey I, former professional boxer, actor, and cut man. Joe, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming on Fuji's Philly Flair.
Nah, pleasure's all mine. This is great.
I know we've been talking this up for maybe a little over a month. And how are you? I hope you had great holidays.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Big family get together. Christmas Eve for us is really our Christmas. So, being Italian. But yeah, right. Christmas Day is just like, open a couple gifts and, eat a ham,
Right. Exactly. I just, we were talking right before we got on, came right on air. I mean, it was hilarious. You were talking about, you did you do all, like, help out in all 5 Rockies?
I was in 5 of them.
Right.
4. No, I'm sorry. I was in 4 of 2, 5, Balboa, Creed. I played myself. And the second Creed, I just did some technical advice stuff. I wasn't in it because they wanted all fresh faces because of they were supposed to be in Russia.
Right.
Yeah. But
actually,
yeah.
4 actually took place. Didn't they make that in Canada?
Wyoming.
It was really?
Yeah.
I thought somebody told me. I thought I heard Canada at some point.
No, they were out in Wyoming. They were in Colorado. They were like, when he runs up the he's up there screaming, Drago! Yeah,
Right. I wanted to
start. 4 is my worst one, though. I know people hate it when I say that, but to me, that was like an 80s boxing MTV video. Like, it's entertaining, but boy, did that really go right off the,
I remember watching you do your podcast, and really how you got into Rocky was it Rocky or Rocky 2 where
Rocky 2.
You were actually running with all the other.
Yeah.
Can you explain, like, just get into like how all this?
Well, I was about. I always thought it was like the beginning of '79, like January, but I actually was corrected. I always thought it was the day. I think it was like the day after Thanksgiving, which made sense because all the streets were still blocked off, and we wound up running with them, but. So I would have been 9, almost 10. And I had been where I grew up. I was bullied all the time. I was little. I'm little now. But, and where I grew up, I was like the only Italian kid in the neighborhood. So they didn't know what the hell an Italian was. So I got bullied a lot. And my father, my friends, everybody would tell me, why don't you go to the boxing gym? And I'm like, why? I'll get beat up there too. And I was like, and even one of the bigger kids would make one of my friends who boxed, who was even littler than me, beat me up for fun, and I'd be walking home with him and he'd be saying, oh, why don't you come to the gym? And I'm like, I don't want to box. I didn't even play contact sports. All I did was run track. So they came to my school and they were picking all the athletes, the movie production company for Rocky 2. Right. And I didn't know what it was, but they said, everybody who plays a sport, go in that room over there. So we're there, and they're asking different people, and they got to me, and they said, what do you play? I said, I don't play anything. They were like, well, why are you here? They said they wanted all the athletes. They said, well, what do you play? I said, I don't play anything. I run track. And they went, oh, you want to run with Rocky? And I was like, yeah, what, oh my God. Right. And because I truthfully, and I've told him this in the past, I thought he was real. I was 9 years old. Right. So, and so I remember my aunt, like, loaded a bunch of us up into a big old station wagon, drove us down, and we started running with him out. I don't remember, it was Kelly Drive or the Parkway, wherever the heck. But like Chestnut Street or something. We wound up running down Chestnut Street through Independence Hall, the whole thing, And I mean, we weren't running the whole time because we would have ran about 66 miles if we had done it the way they do in the movie. But and we kept, and everybody just kept wanting to get near him, wanting to get near him, wanting to get near him. And at one point, when you see all the kids are real close to him, and then he just takes off from them.
Right.
Well, they kept telling everybody to stay back, but nobody would stay back. So they sped up the van and made him run away. And a friend of mine who was running with us, you can hear it, like you see a little blip, like the edit of it isn't perfect, like back then, but you see it like cuts us completely out of that, and he's already running away, and you hear a kid yelling, "Go, go, go!" And that was a friend of mine named Billy, and so he got a little line there, but we kept going up and down those 72 steps at the art museum, which that's a trivia question, and it's 72 of those little steps, but my little legs were getting me up there.
Right.
Wow. And he just at one point reached down, picked me up, put me on his shoulders. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting on Rocky's shoulders. And he's like, "Oh, how you doing?" And I was like, I didn't say anything. They were like, "Cut that kid down." And I told him, I said, "You probably put me down because I probably peed on you." I was so excited. I'm like, oh shit. And we got finished doing it and whatever. And then I ran right home that night. All that running we did all day, it didn't matter. I went right home. I told my dad, now I want to go to the gym. My father didn't even ask any questions. He went, okay. Took me down to Kensington to the Kensington Ramblers gym.
Right. And
that was it. And I, like I said, I thought Rocky was real, and like I said, I didn't, I probably didn't fight much better either. That old take 5 to throw one good one. I had my nose broke 31 times. My cheek broke. I got arthritis in my face. I didn't even know you could get that, but I wasn't born this ugly.
I was going to say, I mean, that was pretty much, that's how you got started in the fight game.
Yeah.
After you,
he calls it out. Ironically, it just, and then all those years later, it comes to, they call me to be the technical advisor for Creed and to play myself in the movie. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm in a Rocky movie, like it total full circle.
Wow.
It just outrageous. And then ironically, one of the Hall of Fames I went into in the New Jersey Hall of Fame back in, I think 2017. So a year or two after the Creed movie had come out, they inducted me, and their man of the year that year was Chuck Wepner, who was the real Rock, who was the first fight I ever watched on television, because I was about I was 5 days away from turning 6 years old.
Right.
And it was a Monday night fight, and at school, and the next day. So my father says, "Go up to bed and I'll call you down when the fight comes on." It's all right. So my father figures this ain't going to go 3 rounds,
right.
Wepner and Ali. So he lets me come down, and 15 rounds later, I fell in love with boxing, and I fell in love with, watching it. I'm not saying that I wanted to be a fighter at that time when I was 5, 6 years old, but he bled all over the place. And I think that's what made me also fall in love with the blood.
Right.
But it was like ironic that, I know the real Rocky worked with the Rocky in the movie, and they've all like kind of culminated into a full circle.
So how long were you a professional boxer?
I was an amateur and then a professional. So a total between the amateurs and pros for 15 years.
I don't know.
Which, yeah. But, and I had an injury, and I had to stop fighting. I blew my knee out in a fight at the Armory up in Northeast Philly. Yeah. And, both my knees were bad by that point, and I was still real young, but I just was like, now what the hell do I do? And my father and my girlfriend, who's now been my wife for over 32 years, was like, "Didn't you say something about wanting to be a cut man when you're done?" I'm like, well, yeah, and I've done it a few times for a few friends who needed help, and they were like, well, all the right people to learn from them and go do that. Because that was just such a lost period. It wasn't long, but it was like a lost period of you do this your whole life. You get up in the morning, you run 5 miles. I would either go to school or then to work. And then, and then you go to the gym after, and then you're sparring, you're training, you're going somewhere to another gym to spar with somebody. So it was, or preparing for a fight. It was just your life. It's all part of your life. And then all of a sudden it was like, just stops. And it was like, do I wear a knee brace and fight really bad bummy guys, or do I move on? But I took the advice, and which I give a lot of people advice nowadays. Every
Right.
fighter, when they think they're done, they think it's over. And I'm like, if that was the case 150 years ago, boxing would have died, because all the guys, when they were done fighting, if they had never kept helped anyone else out, like taught anyone else how to fight, or managed anyone, or promoted anyone, or worked their corner as a cut man, boxing would have just died. So we have to pass on what we have.
I was going to say, Philly is known for gritty fighters. What separates Philly boxers from everybody else?
Probably the friggin' ridiculous gym wars that we have, and the gritty streets that we come from. I mean, I even when I come home, from the gym, say when you're a kid, I'm not saying it happened even when I was a grown man in bars and stuff, but you get guys want to test you because they know you go to the gym. So you wind up in more street fights than you do in actual fights. But that's where we all everybody. I don't know anybody that's from Philly that hasn't had their share of street fights growing up, barroom brawls, and I think we're just tougher. We're a blue collar town. I mean, I always tell people my collar's so blue it's black. It's like
I was going to say, I know when we were talking, setting it up for you to come on here, we talked about the Blue Horizon, which, was like the mecca of boxing in Philadelphia. And I mean, you figure the opening of Rocky when he, of course he fights Spider Rico. And can you just talk
the Blue Horizon?
Was it?
Nah, it was in LA. It was called the Recreation Athletic Club. If you look back on the back of the wall, it even says Recreation AC.
Really?
But, no, that was in East LA. That was a little dumpy fight club. Yeah.
Did not know that.
But they have always tried to recreate the Blue Horizon. It would, and that wasn't even supposed to represent the Blue Horizon. It was actually supposed to represent a place that was on Kensington Ave called the Cambria Fight Club. They called that the Blood Pit. And that's what it really was supposed to be. But the Blue Horizon, that to me was, I'm telling you, I recently did a documentary about the Blue Horizon, and like the first thing I said was it was a dump, but it was our dump.
Right.
Like it was the #1 place to watch a fight. It was voted in the year 2000 by ESPN.
Wow.
In the world. It only held 1,100 people. I made my pro debut there. Me and the other guy was like, his father was a councilman, and all this stuff. So they made a big deal about it. So we were like the poor man's Ali Frazier.
Yeah.
And 4,100 people showed up to watch the fights. They had to put 3,000 people in the basement watching it on TVs.
Wow.
Never happened before, never happened again. But that place, when I was in the ring, I had a friend. He was about 6'4". He reached down from the edge of the balcony and slapped my glove.
Wow.
That's how close you were. I was the house cut man there for 10 years. I promoted shows there. I worked so many different fights and fought there. It's just that was just part of my life. I mean, I started going there when I was about 8 years old, and they only used to have, back then there was like $8 general admission, all the seats. So you could sit ringside if you wanted for $8, but nobody wanted to sit ringside. Everybody wanted to be in that balcony right at the edge.
Right.
So it was like cattle, and the door, when they opened the doors, everybody would just run for the upstairs. And my father, my uncles, and everything, they would tell me and my cousins and my brother to you guys run up there and get us and hold us the seats, so we get there first, and we we're holding seats, and oh no, this seat saved, this seat saved, and we would always try to get right there on the end. And as a kid though, I always had some fascination with, I watched the guys in the corner more than I was watching the fighters. And I'm seeing these guys, and I'm like, wow, these guys like come in, they got to be like doctors and stuff. And it's like, come to find out, ain't no doctor, but you're more like a street doctor, But I always say doctors don't belong doing what I do, and I don't belong in the emergency room.
That was it was like one of the lines in Rocky V when they asked some doctors said something about the
Yeah, and he said,
he
"What do you
shouldn't
think about
fight.
doctors fight?" Yeah,
Doc,
I don't think doctors should fight. Yeah,
right. I got a comment coming in. Friend of mine, Mike Papernick Jr., checking in saying the Kensington Rambler Boxing Gym was about 10, 15 minutes from my house.
yeah, and that was another place that was a dump, but it was great. It's actually still there, but it's not. It's not the same gym. And the guy had bought it and fixed the whole damn. They even have a sauna in there now. It's a beautiful place now. But when we were kids, there was like pissy mattresses lined up against the wall. So when you're in the
Right.
ring, that was like like a homemade ring, and so you didn't bang your head into the wall. But it damn sure served the purpose, and it was my a friend of mine who I've known forever, who's good friend of mine still. He was a
Right.
fighter. His name was Anthony Boyle. His father was my first trainer, and he ran the Ramblers gym.
Is it Joe Hand's gym? Is that still around? Maybe
That's moved
wrong.
all over the place. Right now, they have a big giant one up in Feasterville on Street Road.
Okay.
Yeah,
that was originally
they were on one of them. They managed me actually at one point, so I known the Hands like forever.
So that gym was originally down like in that Kensington area.
Yeah,
right?
it was in Northern Liberties.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Speaking of gyms, I mean my backdrop, which I don't know if you can tell.
There it is. Yep.
Mighty mix.
Yeah, and I know where that sign is.
Know what I was watching? You were telling me about that guy Mike that's
Mike
Rock.
That was in Rock. Yeah, that was Jimmy Gambino. He had been a bantamweight fighter. He was the technical advisor and everything for the movie. For the first one.
He was saying about the sign, like they never took it down.
Yeah, for a long time they didn't. No,
right.
But when they finally did go down, and then they had it in storage, and I saw it when it was in storage when we were doing the Creed movie, and I was with the producer Shartoff, and I'm like, well, what are you going to do with this? They're like, well, we don't even know what we're going to do with it, but they put it inside the gym for the Creed movie.
Okay.
Right, because the outside that was never a gym. That was never a gym. That was a bar, a union hall. It was a plumbing supply place. I think the last place it was, and it was just vacant forever. The inside of the gym was really in Rocky. Is the first two Rockies was in the Main Street gym in L.A.
Oh, well.
It was used in every damn TV show and movie that had anything to do with boxing. Great looking gym too, like old school gym. But in Creed, we were in a gym in Chester. It's called Must Fight Gym, and they put the sign up in there. What? But that sign, a friend, I know a guy. He's a Teamster, and he hangs out at a bar in Runnymede, New Jersey. That's owned by Kelly Ripa's brother. And the bar's called Kid Rips. I think the guy had a couple fights or something. So there's like a box, that old like tattoo, like the boxer. That's the logo for it. Inside that, hanging on the wall, is that sign. He got the guy that with the Teamster that worked for the movie, got that from them, and that's in their bar on the Black Bike in Runnymede.
Wow.
Yep.
I was going to say Rocky 3. When Apollo, when they went back to LA after he lost to Clubber Lang. Now, was that the same gym that Apollo and Rocky?
Tough gym? No, that was actually that was a real gym in LA.
Right.
And that was another one. That was a dump. Yeah. I had 7 gyms over the years, and I always kind of based them on those kind of places. It was like, you want to come in and you want to smell the blood and the sweat, and you know what I mean? It just the stinky leather. Nowadays you go in these places, it's all frou-frou shit, and they got air conditioning. I was like, any gym that you're going to train in got air conditioning, I'm like, you're never going to be a good fighter. You got to sweat your balls off in the wintertime. Hell, you even got to freeze a little bit. You know what I mean?
The funny thing is now I'm thinking to myself when when you first watch Rocky, like Back to the Blue Horizon, I'm picturing the Blue Horizon isn't it like a picture of Jesus up on the wall?
No, that's in That's the Resurrection AC in
Yeah, that's what I mean. All of a sudden,
yeah.
I'm thinking that looks like the Blue Horizon
Yeah,
inside
no, there was a
all
moose
these
head
years.
in the Blue Horizon. There was a big
Really?
moose head on the wall because it had been a
Man.
moose lodge back in the 1800s.
I mean, that was a place I never got to, and I'm thinking I'm going to walk in and see Jesus, a
Yeah,
mural
no.
of Jesus on the wall all these years, and now,
Yeah,
you know, it's,
I
you know,
actually I promoted a show. If you remember,
right.
you remember the old Kensington roller rink at Kensington and Venango on Kensington Ave, right?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a roller rink anymore, and a friend of my father's had got it, and he was using it as a catering hall. So he
Right.
said, well, want your son to come in here and like start doing some shows. So I went down. I said, all right. And I went in, and that's what it reminded me of in the beginning of Rocky. And there was even like a cross or something like up on stained glass. And I was like, oh my God, this is like, and the building was painted like red. So we called it the Diablo Club.
Okay.
And, and it had the old hardwood floors because it
Yeah.
would have been a roller rink and, fit about 800 or 900 people in there. And, but there was a lot of people who were too afraid to go to that part of the town at the time. And, but that was, everybody came in. That's the first thing they said. This is like in the beginning of Rocky. I'm like, exactly. And the L trains running right by.
Right.
You can't, I think even Paulie was hanging out drunk, drinking some four roses, bottle of 4 roses on the ground.
I was going to ask you, what's something fans would be surprised to learn about the life in boxing?
Well, I would say that fighters aren't the mean, badass, tough guys that everybody makes them out to be.
Right.
It's your job. It's a business. Boxing.
Mhm.
Boxing's not a game. It's a sport, but it's not a game. Every other game, you play with a ball, right? One
Mhm.
ball. Right, any game you can think of: football, baseball, basketball, hockey, golf, whatever. Boxing, guy or girl, you know what you need? You need 2 balls, right? You got to
Right.
have balls to be able to do it, but
Mhm.
it's a business. It's what you do for a living. So you don't just go around picking fights and want to fight everybody or be you're a mean person. Most of the fighters that I always run into them, I mean, of course, there's guys out there that are assholes, but for the most part, boxers are very down to earth, easy-going, very
Mhm.
approachable people. Probably out of any sports type person, you can walk up to a boxing guy,
Right.
like a fighter, before you can walk up to somebody from the Eagles or the Phillies.
Agreed, because
And they're not, and it's very, very hard. See, what makes a real full fighter is not just a guy with a lot of balls and heart, not a
Mhm.
guy with just a punch, not a guy who's got all the skills in the world. You got to have all that put together, and that can make you a champion. I've seen plenty of guys with all the skills in the world, but they ain't got this. And you can't give a fighter heart, you can't give him balls, and you can't give him a punch. Those things you got to be, or a chin. You got to be born with that stuff. So there's plenty of guys that could box their ass off but couldn't take a punch or didn't have the balls to get back up. Like Rocky says, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you get
Right.
hit and keep moving forward, which that is about life. Boxing isn't always about how much you can take. It's more about
Right.
it's hit and not be hit. I didn't learn that until it was too late,
Right.
but yeah, no, I would say that for the most part, a lot of people just have this envisionment that, every boxer's out is stupid and wants to rip your head off. Well, if you want to be a good fighter, you got to be a really smart guy because it's the only sport you use everything from your brain to your toes. I mean, you might wind up stupid and talk like this, but
Right.
you got to be smart to be a good fighter.
Who would you say is the most memorable fighter you ever worked with?
Most memorable. Whew, that's hard. I mean, memorable and like good, they're all different. Like very memorable. Remember Butterbean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty memorable, 450-pound fat guy. You know what I
Right.
mean? But that Sergey Kovalov, Tim Witherspoon, who's a really good friend of mine.
Local
Yeah.
guy.
I've worked with him,
Mhm.
his nephew, his son, and now his grandson's supposed to be fighting, and they
Oh,
asked me to
wow.
work. So that's like a first time ever that I think, and that's really starting to make me feel old too. But I've done that with several. Bruce Seldon, who was heavyweight champion of the world for a while.
Nice.
I worked with him. I worked with his son, and now I work with his other son, Bruce Jr. So, yeah, the memorable. I mean, Joe Frazier's daughter, Jackie Frazier. I was her cut
Mhm.
man.
Did
Pretty
you?
cool, with the Ollie and her.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
Did you train Joe Frazier's daughter once she fought?
I worked
Muhammad
as a
Ali.
cut man. I didn't
Oh,
train her,
all
but
right. Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I worked there. It's the list goes. I could go on forever. A guy that I fought in the amateurs that I lost twice to, he beat Arturo Gatti twice,
All
and
right.
then wound up going on. I wound up being his cut man, was Ivan Robinson years later, and then I actually had him fight. I worked it out that he wound up fighting Julio Cesar Chavez in both. It was both their last fights in so that was really memorable. But I've been all over the damn world, and to me though, it doesn't matter if you're 0-10 or 100-0. It doesn't matter if we're on television or in a back alley. It doesn't matter, it doesn't, I work MMA fights, Muay Thai fights, kickboxing fights, wherever they bleed and need their hands wrapped, I'm there.
I was going to ask you this, and I just found this out just recent that about Saquon Barkley. His uncle is
Yeah.
Iran Barkley. That was
I'm
a
friends
fighter.
with Iran Barkley. Yes. Yep.
I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of. I remember.
I
Wasn't
was just with him
Iran
last month.
Barkley. Wasn't he a middleweight or
Yes.
light?
Yep. Middleweight and super middleweight. Yeah.
I remember he didn't fight Marvin Hagler like in
No,
that
he
weight
fought Duran.
Right.
He fought
Okay.
Roberto Duran. Yeah. Yeah. He was a hell of a fighter.
I remember
Called
him
him
being
the
a
Blade.
boxer. I remember him being a boxer like in the maybe the mid to late 80s.
80s into the early 90s. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
He recently had a stroke. He's doing better now, but yeah, I just saw him at they were giving awards out in New York they have like a big event every year in Queens, New York, and he was there. I saw him. I see him. I belong to the Veteran Boxer Association Ring 1 in Philly, but I also belong to the New York one in Ring 8. And whenever they have a meeting, we drive up there. I go up, and so I get to see guys like that, like Iran Barkley and Vito Anafirmo and guys like that. Whenever we're up for their meetings.
I was going to say, like, it's a shame because, the fight game has been around for, well, I guess over 100 years, but it just seems like, you don't see the fights like a card like you used to, with, especially like in the heavyweight division, which to me is kind of sad because
I know most people don't know who the heavyweight champ is or this or that.
I mean, it's just not because you
I
used
know.
to have what?
If I don't even know if if you checked around, but there's probably a picture floating around of me and who the heavyweight champion of the world is, and you wouldn't even know who it is. It's a guy named Usyk. He's a Ukrainian guy. Right. But like most people don't, it's not like the old days. And a lot that's killed everything is it's all the television that killed it. They always say that the reason they stopped having 15-round fights is because Boom Boom Mancini had killed,
Juku Kim.
Well, I'm very good friends with Boom Boom, and we've discussed that a lot, but that's not what did it. What did it was money, commercials. You couldn't fit 15 rounds with commercials into 1 hour, but you could fit a 12-round fight in with the equal amount of commercials that they have to put in between rounds in 1 hour. That's what did it. So that just started it. And then when they realized, hey, why don't we do this where we don't need commercials? Let's start doing the pay-per-view stuff. And that really started making shit go down. I mean, you could watch fights on Tuesday nights, Friday nights, Saturdays, afternoon, Saturday night. When the Blue Horizon, when I fought Tuesday night fights on USA.
Yeah, I was going to just bring that up. I remember that like 25, 30 years ago they would have.
The saying was Tuesday night fights is going to knock me out.
Right.
Yep.
And it's just a shame. Like
it is.
The boxing game is just
a lot
diminished.
of it, and a lot of it isn't the boxing game's fault either, because these past 2 generations coming up now, our generation, the last tough generation, I guess you want to call it, Generation X. We're like the last tough guys, whatever. I don't know, but now everybody wants all that instant gratification. They want everything yesterday, right? So that's why MMA is really, really big. You get a lot of these quick chokeouts, knockouts,
Right.
kicks, to put somebody on their back, and even they do 3 5-minute rounds.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So nobody wants to sit there and watch 12 rounds of guys going at it. And it's just, and the more boxing has evolved, you get a lot of it gets away from like when Gaddy and Ward were fighting each other those
Right.
3 times. They were just two guys who didn't have a reverse. You know what I mean? So they just stood there and they banged it out. That's what the fans want to see. That's a fan favorite fight. You don't see a whole lot of that anymore. And guys want to fight twice a year, especially once they win a belt. It's not like, like I said, not like it was years ago. I mean, guys like Willie Pep, to me, is probably the best pound for pound fighter ever.
Right.
He had almost 250 fights. He had 224 wins, and he was in a plane crash, broke his back. They said he'd never walk again. He went back and fought for another 10 years. It's just crazy. I knew a guy that an older guy that fought him that was from Philly.
Mhm.
And I said, he fought him twice, but he fought him towards the end of Pep's career. And I said, he goes, Joe, wouldn't have mattered if it was his beginning of his career or the end of his last fight. He said, I could have never beat him in my wildest dreams.
Right. I have a question.
Incredible.
I'm going to go back to 1987, almost 40 years. Now,
The year I graduated high school.
it was Marvin Hagler against Sugar Ray Leonard.
Yep.
And I think they did fight a couple times, but
that time they fought that you're talking about, Marvin retired as soon as that fight was over. Because, and if everybody who doesn't know boxing says Sugar Ray won.
No, I know. I was going to say that.
Yep.
So
Marvin won that fight. Marvin was the champ. He
Right.
didn't back him up. He didn't at one little bit. Friggin', Ray was just running around.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if anybody, I tell people all the time, that's one of those ones. We can't be friends. We can't talk if you're going to tell me that Sugar Ray Leonard won
Right.
that fight. I love Sugar Ray Leonard, but no. Marvin Hagler.
I was a big Hagler fan back then, and I'm like, how's this fight not fixed? Like
exactly.
Like,
well, he was the gold. What you call was the golden boy.
Right.
Sugar Ray. I mean, come on, he's doing 7-Up commercials. You know what I mean? And Hagler's just, he's just came to fight. He came to Philly a bunch of times in the 70s while he was coming up, and was beating all our good middleweights. And the ones that didn't, he had his first loss, in Philly. And Willie the Worm Monroe. And then also he fought Bobby Boogaloo Watts, but he came back and he knocked them both dead. Like, he came back and avenged those fights. But he had some wars, and he had 2 wars with Vito Antuofermo, who I know very well. He took his title from him. So I mean, guys like that, you ain't gonna see that no more. And so just like you ain't gonna see the Blue Horizon anymore. People ask me, maybe they'll build. You could build something exactly like it. It's not gonna be like it.
Wasn't there about, I'm going to go back in the 10, 15-year range. Weren't they supposed to reopen the Blue Horizon? Like, somebody bought it and
Somebody
were like,
did buy it, but they weren't opening it. It was never going to be a fight place ever again. Somebody did buy it, supposedly. A developer did buy it. But if it ever winds up being anything, it's supposed to be like not a bed and breakfast, but like a small hotel, like
a bed and breakfast there.
Yeah, almost like a bed and breakfast, but with a boxing theme. They're gonna have like a little like diner inside, but with all because I had been asked. I forget what I gave, but it was something for it when it becomes the restaurant. I gave something of mine. I don't even remember what it was because so long ago. But they got closed down in 2010, and to my advantage, I guess if you want to call it to my advantage, at that time, I was promoting shows, and Harris Casino contacted me.
Harris,
Harris
I
told him to go F off. I was like, who the fuck wants to go to Chester? And I was like, it's behind a fucking prison on an industrial highway. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. And somebody called me, said, "Why don't you go check it out?" I said, "I'm like, all right, I'm like, what's got to lose, So the first thing that sold me a little bit was free indoor parking.
Right.
Okay, that's good because you ain't getting that at the Blue Horizon. And this is right, like I said, right after the Blue Horizon got shut down. So I'm like, okay. So I went in. You could probably put about 1,000 people here. The ceilings aren't real high, but we could do like local club shows. Maybe a state title or something like that. And I said, we really can't have any real TV here because they can't have the big cameras and stuff. I said, but and I'm like, so I worked it out, and I wound up being the first promoter ever promoting a casino in the state of Pennsylvania, which made everybody and their mother jealous. People were calling there 6 ways to friggin' Sunday to get me out of there. But I was there for about 5 years. I was doing shows every 6 to 8 weeks and putting on good quality shows. And but then they decided to change that giant room that we were in into a poker room and get rid of the buffet that was at the end of the casino floor and use this little that as the fight arena with just drapes and and people in the casino floor. You could smoke there, everything. It's the whole room was smoky. We couldn't put 400 people in there. I said, how in the hell could I make any money doing shows? And it just it just didn't work after that. But but like I said, there was people calling there all the time telling them that I was I've been promoting longer than your promoter's been alive, or let me come in here. You want to do something with Joe? Contact Joey. You know what I mean? Maybe you could co-promote. No, fuck him. I want in there. Everybody in the and then they started having people. I got investigated by the gaming commission. My wonderful partner at the time thought he could get me out. And they were having people call there and saying that I was an extortionist, a pimp, this and that. And I said to the gaming commission, I said to the manager, I said, boy, I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. And they're like, whoa, let's get to the bottom. If I go, no, I ain't worried about you. I said, I'm worried about my friends. They're like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're saying that people are saying I'm a pimp. I said, I never got any of my friends laid. And I said, and what the fuck are you talking about? An extortionist. I'm 5'2". Who am I extorting? Mickey Mouse? And they're like, oh, this is funny. I go, it is fucking funny. I said, this is just jealous people trying to stick it to me. And I said, yeah, I had the gaming. I got investigated 3 times by the gaming commission. The whole, and it just was, it's just that. Like I always say, the only thing square in boxing is the ring.
Ring. I was going to ask you how did you transition from fighter to becoming a cut man?
Well, when I was still an amateur fighter, I was probably about 18, 19 years old, whatever it was. I had a friend. They called him the Worm, actually, too. A white guy. He would never train. He'd smoke cigarettes between rounds and shit. He didn't care. Right. So he was he shouldn't have been taking fights at that point. And he asked me to work his corner, and I'm like, okay, so I ran out. I got what I needed. And I worked his corner. The first time I worked, he got cut. I stopped it. I said, so I thought, you know what? When I'm done fighting, this is what I want to do. And so that happened a few more times over the years while I was still an amateur. And then when I turned pro, even if I was on the undercard, first couple fights, whichever, if I went first, second, or third fight, I'd be working the rest of the fight. I'd be working other guys' corner. So when it really came time, like I said, when I blew my knee out, there were 3 guys that I knew that were like Hall of Fame cut men.
Right.
And one was Eddie. They called him the Clot. Eddie Aliano. He worked with Sugar Ray Leonard, Matthew Saad Muhammad. He worked with everybody. I mean, he was even just doing club shows. He was back in the 80s. He moved. He didn't drive. So he moved to Atlantic, to Margate, so he could shuttle in 3-4 times a week to Atlantic City when all the big and small fights were happening. He was making money hand over fist, but he was really knew his thing. Older guy, calm guy. I would go to one gym and I'd talk to him. And then there was another guy named Adolph Rataco, called Little Aby. And people thought I was his grandson because same size, same build. The description of him is always he's either telling a joke or smacking you in the face. And that's me, which I was supposed to play him in a movie about Joey Giardella because he had Joey Giardella.
Okay.
But so he was long out of it. and I would go to a bar in South Philly and sit down in the bar, and he'd tell me stuff. We drink together, and he'd tell me, you know. And then there was a third guy that his last name is very hard to say, but he's a Polish guy. He was a fireman. His name was Stan the Cutman, they called him. And he worked in South Philly at 4th and Snyder at the firehouse. I would go there and I see him there. So I get little bits from each person, you know. And Eddie had taught me how to wrap hands, you know, and about being real calm with everything. And Adolf told me all the tricks. Right. And you know, and then and Stan, you know, just always giving me advice on how to be in the corner and this and that. And you know, when it was my time, like I said, after I was, you know, basically, like I said, I hung my shingle out, and I went, you know, and places like the Blue Horizon, I was like totally cutting my teeth in there. I mean, I got thrown in quick. There would be people coming in, guys would come in from out of town by themselves. Fighters would come in. They, you know, some guy from Minnesota or Idaho or right. Sweden. They come in all by themselves, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to give you a guy," and they give me. So I'm all of a sudden now I'm the guy's trainer, his chief second, and the cut man. But you know, but I took to it. You know, I have a love for it. You know, it's you know, when I was a kid, I was young. I got to work in a funeral home. They were trying to groom us, me and my other friend, to be funeral directors, and he did wind up becoming a funeral director. I just couldn't imagine me. Could you imagine me? You know, seeing people coming in for, "Hey, how you been?" Oh. Like, I guess not too good, right. You know. But I'm not. That was not, you know. But I did get to see a lot of that. You know, I check, see what they were doing, and see them. You know, I see the blood and stuff, and I kind of like that. So the job that I have, you have to be like, you got to be a little nuts. You know, right. I have a love for the blood. You know,
I got it.
I'm either like a vampire or something. You know, I don't know.
Oh, well, you said, you know, you were what, 6, 7, 8, you know, when you decided, you know, you wanted to be a boxer after running and rock, you know, being in it. And, you know, just over the years, like,
you're like born into it, basically. When you're that young, right. you just don't know any better, and you do it, you know. And funny thing is I never really bled or got cut or anything when I was fighting. I had like thick skin. I would swell up like a son of a bitch. But right. But it turns out I'm the one that, you know, winds up stopping the bleeding for you know.
What's the most intense situation you had in a corner being a cut man?
Well, I would say there's a few times during some title fights where you know, you got one of those type of guys that doesn't, you know, is blocking punches with his face, and right. He's not, you know, he's not going to back up or even go side to side. You know, when it's that intense, and you got to, you know, like say you're Madison Square Garden. You had a fight. It was in Madison Square Garden, and a guy who was actually, who ironically I played his cut man in Creed, was also, I was his cut man for real. And when he fought Triple G, every punch, he didn't look like it, but every punch he threw sounded like someone was getting hit with an aluminum bat.
Wow.
And he was knocking them all over the place, and he's bleeding. He had 3 cuts, one turned, 2 of them turned into one giant one up under where I'm seeing his skull. You know, he's got blood coming in his mouth, his nose, his ears. I'm stopping everything, and the referee, who was a guy, he passed away, but they called him back. Double S. They called him. His name was Steve Smoger, and he was one of those let you fight to the death almost. You know, he didn't stop nothing. So at one point he comes over, and I'm fixing him, getting him ready, and he comes over and goes, "Hey, you're doing a good job, kid." And the fighter goes, "Oh, thanks." He goes, "I ain't talking to you. I'm talking to him." And he smacks me in the face, and I'm like, I turn around, I said, "Yo, Steve, you think maybe I should ease up?" Like he goes, "No, let him keep. He's clean as a daisy when you send him out. So let him keep going." I'm like, "Oh, Jesus Christ!" And we're like, "We got to stop this fight. We got to." And the commission guys behind me and inspectors going, "Joe, you got to." I'm like, "He's not my fighter. I can't do that." And I'm pleading with the and his father, the kid's father, was there, and he's going, "No, he's going to be champ." We're like, "Not today," you know. But yeah, there's been some intense things. One of the weirdest, oddest, intense things was I was working a cage fight for CFFC, which is part of the UFC. We were at 2300 Arena, and it was during the pandemic.
Okay.
And it was on UFC Fight Pass. It was on worldwide, right? It was this Russian fighter. And I'm telling you now, if Russia ever comes over here, we're fucked. They are the toughest sons of bitches. It's ridiculous. The guy comes walking back to the corner, and he's got a cut right down the side of his head. And the doctor goes, "Hey Joe, you got to get this." I said, "I'll get that. I got to worry about this first." Guy just pulls his hand out like this, and they're open palm gloves, and
Right.
And the fingers are exposed.
Mm-hmm.
He's missing his ring finger. Just blood coming out and a little like chicken bone, it looked like.
Holy God.
And the doctor, I said, and the doctor goes, "Oh," he was like going to throw up. And the guy says to me, "Fix." And I said, No, wait a minute. I can stop it, but you're not fighting him. He goes, No, you fix, I fight. I'm like, no, wait. And then they're screaming, everybody's screaming. The commentators think that the finger's in the audience somewhere. They're
Right.
like, and everybody's, I'm like, no, relax. It's right here. It was stuck behind, like jammed into the back of the glove.
God.
And what happened is the other foot, you're not allowed to do, but the other fighter kind of went in under his glove and he started yanking. And he admitted he felt something. So he went back for more. Yeah, and he ripped the guy's finger off. And so I said, and they're like, "What do we do?" I said, "Relax. We're not cutting the wrap off or the glove off." I said, I got to stop. I got a bag of ice on it. I got a cold, wet rag wrapped around it. You get them down the street to the Methodist Hospital, I bet you they can put this back on. I'm like, "Do it now." So, promoter says, "Hey, Joe, could you walk him out while he's on the gurney? Go with him." I said, "Yeah, no problem." I'm walking him out. I says, "They'll get everything taken care of." He goes, "No, don't worry about it. It's okay." Like as if he broke a fingernail. Wow. I was like, "What the fuck?" I said, so then the next day, my phone keeps ringing like crazy. I'm like, "What?" They're like, "You're on TMZ." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, and I can't, I'm going, "Oh shit, what the hell did I do? What did I do now?" And I'm like, "Why am I on TMZ?" And they're like, "The finger." I went, "Oh, that." I was like, "Okay, it's not, no big deal." And they're showing it on TMZ. It was all went viral all over the world. And
how long ago was this?
During the pandemic.
Oh, all right.
About 4 years ago, something like that. So guess what? They sewed it back on.
Yeah.
3 months later, he was right back to fighting. He was from Siberia, tough as shoe leather, friggin'. And they said, whoever did what they did, saved this guy's finger. So that's one of them. And people said that too. People are going, of all people, of course you were involved. If someone lost, I'm like, yeah, who loses a finger? But you got to be prepared. You know what I mean? You like I always say, a Boy Scout and a Marine. You know what I mean? You gotta be prepared, and you gotta adapt and overcome to everything.
God, I didn't mean to.
Just because you don't have a lot of time. It's like if you were at a hospital, they got all the time in the damn world to take care of stuff, and it's and millions of dollars worth of equipment. I got a few things on me that I make sure I have on me and ready to go. And you don't really have a minute. The minute is the bell rings and, well, that would be if he was sitting in front of you. But the last 10 seconds, and they bang on, you hear that banging, that means get out. So that's 50 seconds. Now that would only be 50 seconds if, again, he was sitting right in front of you when they rang the bell. But he's not. He's got to get back there and sit down. At best, you have 44 seconds to get your job done and get him back out there. And with cage fights, I worked them by myself, both sides, the whole night.
Holy shit.
And I don't get any more time. And I've been doing this so damn long that I've got it down to a science where the ring card girl, she's on the catwalk around the outside.
Yeah.
I get in before her. So when she gets to the say both guys are cut.
Yeah.
Go to the first guy that right here. Right. She's coming around. I get to the second guy. So as soon as she's passing me, that's my turn. Time to go. You know what? I got to get out of here and done and have enough time to help her out of the damn cage.
So technically, like not even like a minute, if that.
Like I said, 44 seconds you got. You got 44 seconds to get it done, and that's just working on one guy. So those cage fights, I'm working on both, and I got the same amount. So I got like
88 seconds.
If she passed by me too far, I'm like, well, I'm working too long. Yeah, I got to get, yeah.
Back to the guy you said from Siberia. I just remember a story, it's football related about Ronnie Lott, how he cut his finger off maybe at halftime. I don't know if it was like infected or something, but he ended up cutting his, I think it was his ring, one of his ring finger.
Or something. Yeah.
Yep. And it was like, talk about a warrior, man.
Yeah, you won't get that today with football.
No, not at all.
Oh my God. You see them over there, they do 30 seconds and they're over there sucking oxygen.
Oh, yeah. Fuck? I mean, going under the blue tent and, in no time.
I remember we were playing all the time when I played football and, kickoff team, and it always seemed like they picked me to kick it to because I was the littlest guy. You know what I mean? Right. It's like you just see everybody's running right at you. And, there was times where the coaches would say, I didn't even get the move and they were boom, a pile. And they were like, oh, they think I was dead. And like bell rung, I could get up. I'm all right. Let's go back to playing,
right.
But,
some of the pictures you sent me, I was going to bring up, let's go back to the Chuck Webner the picture you sent me. And
that was I think it was around 2019. I think I got to see, that was in a warehouse. I got to see the statue of him before anybody, me and a few other people went up to see it. And it's now at a park in Bayonne, New Jersey, at the top of a set of stairs that are kind of like the art museum steps, because that's what he used to run up and down those steps before there was Rocky. But yeah, he one tough son of a bitch, friggin' and crazy too. There's a movie called Chuck, and it's about him, and Liv Schreiber plays him to the T. It's not like a Disney version of anything. It doesn't pull any punches.
Well, this is technically where Sly got the idea of watching the Chuck Webner fight.
That's what I'm saying. That night he fought Muhammad Ali. Nobody gave it going past 3 rounds because he was just a liquor salesman from Bayonne, New Jersey, who was known as, which you don't call him that, but was known as the Bayonne Bleeder. If you called him that even now, he's 85 years old. He'd knock you dead. But and he's been very sick. He had renal cancer. But he's still, I saw him in November at the New Jersey Hall of Fame. We were together there. Stallone saw that in a bar on a closed circuit TV, ran home and in 3 days wrote the script for Rocky. Right. And he had actually gone to, once they agreed on the whole thing, he went to Wepner and said, look, he said, you were the inspiration for this.
Right.
And he said, I want you to read the script, tell me what you think about it, and then I want you to tell me like how you trained, what you did, this and that, and I'll give you either $2,500 cash or 2% of whatever the movie makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Wepner looked at it, read it, and was like, this is some bad B-movie love story. Which he was right. It was a love story. Rocky's not a boxing movie. It's a love story, right? With a boxing backdrop. But he said, just give me the $2,500. Well, he would have made $8.2 million, right?
Right.
So when the second one rolls around, Stallone said, he kind of felt bad for him a little bit, but he's like, hey, he made his decision, which he probably would have said he was being smart, because if somebody came to me right now and said, look, tell me what this for whatever, and I'm playing you in a movie. I don't know why I would do that, but just saying, right? And you see there's nobody behind it. There's nothing. The guy who's going to be the star in it, nobody knows who he is. I would have been like, yeah, just give me the money now. You know what I mean? I mean, he wasn't being stupid. Mm-hmm. It's a gamble. But Stallone came to him the second time and said, look, I want to make you my sparring partner in this one. And your name's going to be Chink Weber. And his character is that he's a ranked guy, and he's pissed off now, really pissed off, because now Rocky's getting a second title shot. This guy can't even get one, and he deserves it. He's the guy in the. So they're sparring. They're supposed to be sparring, and and he won't take it easy with Rocky, but it never even got to that because Chuck showed up, pilled up, drunk, with 2 hookers.
My God.
And Stallone was like, oh my God, like, can't have this. So he's like, look, I really want you in the movie. Come back tomorrow, clean and sober. Well, he came back the next day. He just didn't have the hookers, but he was all messed up. So they, nope. So then in Rocky 3, when Thunder Lips and Rocky fight, which I can tell you a story there too. After, but same thing happened to me and Stallone heard about it in LA, but I'll tell you that later. But Stallone got the idea for that because Wepner fought Andre the Giant in Shea Stadium, and the same thing happened. Andre the Giant picked him up and threw him out of the ring, and then he came in and picked up Andre the Giant and threw him out of the ring.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, if you look that up, crazy. Wepner even fought a bear once. He fought
I did hear that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Right? So,
wow.
Then, it was like 1989, I think, they were making a movie called Lockup. Stallone was making. It was a prison movie.
Prison movie. I remember.
In Northern State Prison, right? In North Jersey. And they're in there, and who's in there? Was locked up for selling drugs? Chuck.
Holy God.
Chuck wanted to see him, and Stallone wouldn't see him. Right? So he was like, this son of a bitch. He said, and guess what the bad guy's name was in the movie? Did you ever see 48 Hours?
Yeah. Eddie Murphy and
remember the big Indian Billy Bear?
Yeah.
That guy's the bad guy in the movie in Lockup, right?
Okay.
His name was Chink Weber.
Wow.
Yep. So Chuck got pissed. He said, this son of a bitch has been living my whole life. He's like, he's living my life. He's like, he's stealing from me. And then he was, at that point, Stallone was going around saying that now he wasn't the inspiration for the movie. So he started suing him.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Remember hearing that.
What happened is when they made the movie Copland, it was right where, and they made it right
97.
Right in North Jersey.
Yeah.
So De Niro contacted Chuck and said, come down to the movie set. You're suing the wrong person. I think we can work something out. So when Chuck got there, friggin' Stallone seen him. He was like, oh shit, he came to kill me. He's like, and because like Sly's about 5'9", 5'10", you know what I mean? And Chuck Wepner's like 6'5", 6'6". You know what I mean? And back then, oh my God, like so imposing. I mean, even now he's, so he showed up to the on the set, and Stallone's like, oh shit, and De Niro said, no, let's go in one of the campers here, in the trailers, and we'll talk this out. And he basically said to him, he said, you're suing the wrong guy. And Stallone's like, what are you talking about? And he said, he shouldn't be suing you. He should be suing the movie company. He's like, and he was like, he goes, if you back him up on that, then you can come to, and they were like, yeah, Stallone was like, yeah, okay. But they came to an agreement that, and everybody tries to ask him, he like a non-disclosure thing where Chuck can't tell you how much he got, which I think in my opinion, probably didn't get a lot. But you know what I mean? I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe he got a ton of money and but he's still a liquor salesman in Bayonne, New Jersey. So
still to this day? Oh my
God.
to
this day. Him and his wife. His wife, his second wife that told him, And
he's how old? 85?
He's like 84, 85 at this point. Wow. Yeah.
God bless him.
Yeah. So they have their liquor sales business. He's like he was a wild dude, in his day.
Right.
And it's those Rocky things, all intertwine all the way through. And my stupid ass knows all this crap.
I was pulling up this picture here with you and Slotty.
That was when we made Creed.
Okay.
That day I get a lot of my balls broke a lot with that picture though. That
With the
picture's in half the
Yankees?
bars in the city, and everybody
Yeah.
goes, "Why are you wearing a Yankees jacket?" And it's like,
I
"Because
know.
my daughter bought it for me, Mike, when she was 7 years old." And I said, "And I like the Yankees. I know everybody bitches at me, but Phillies or Yankees, and I'm sorry, but I go
I
back
get
to
it.
the '77 Yankees. That
Right.
when we were little."
Reggie
And I
Jackson.
played the team I played on, my first baseball team. We wore the pinstripes and everything. We were the Yankees.
Right.
They would just always, my
Wow.
team, I guess you would say. But I mean, that was a vintage jacket. My daughter, when she was
I
only
remember that jacket.
yeah, and found
That
it
was
still with the tags on it
well,
in like a vintage store. And I was, so I still have it. Every once in a while I wear it. But yeah, a lot of people. But that nobody was allowed to take pictures with them, right? Nobody was allowed to take pictures with anybody, right? You couldn't have your phone on or anything. So, and me as a technical advisor, if I saw anybody even thinking about pulling a phone out, I didn't really do it much, but I've been like, get out, But so that day he came to me, he said, "Oh, you want to take a picture?" And I said, "I thought we were supposed to take pictures." He goes, No, I want to take a picture with you." I said, "All right."
what?
I said, "Why?" And I said, "Shouldn't be the other way around." And he said, "No." He said, "You're a real guy." He said, "That's why we have you here." He said, "You
Right.
bring the realism to this." He was like, if like when you see Michael B. Jordan's hands wrapped, I wrapped his hands.
Right.
Everybody in that movie, I handpicked.
I remember
Everybody.
you were saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the only boxing movie that I can remember that everybody but the main character was real. Like they would call me and say, "Joe, we need a referee." Okay. What age, what color? Okay, we need a Spanish guy like 40, 50 years old. No problem. Boom. I send you,
Right.
we need a white, we need this, we need a black guy. Well, how old? I don't know, like 45. I said, perfect. Sean Clark, go down there. Friggin' just wear your outfit, you'll get the job. So Ryan Cougar calls me the one night. He goes, "Joey, let me holler at you." I said, "Yeah, you want to talk to me? What's up?" And he says, "Give me all your Italians." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, we're going to do a gym scene. Give me all." I go, "Italian what?" And he goes, "Fighters, trainers, managers, everybody." I said, "Okay." I said, "No problem." I called everybody I knew that was in boxing that had a vowel on the end of their name
Right.
that was in the
Oh,
area.
God.
"Get your ass down here." And then we're there. And I look around, there was like one little black kid in the whole thing. And I'm going, I said, "Yo, Sly, who the hell's idea was this?" I said,
Right.
"This is Disney bullshit." I said, "No, Jim,
Oh,
I said,
man.
not only is there no gym that's all white, there's no gym that's bringing all Italian guys." I said,
Right.
when he came for Rocky V and was picking guys to be sparring partners or opponents for Tommy Gunn, right? For
Right.
Tommy Morrison, right? So the owner of the gym, it was a Philadelphia boxing club. It was right down the street from Pat's and Gino's Steaks, right?
Right.
I was training at. And I walked in the one day and they're already there. And I walked in and I was a cement contractor for a long time. So I came in, I was still right from work. I probably got like a Carhartt work jacket on, and I had like a Jeff cap on, and I wear them all the time, and I walked in and they're like, and he's going, "Yeah, I'd take him, I would take him right here." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "I'm not a heavyweight, I'm freaking lightweight." He goes, No, we'll put you in the corner. Wear that hat. And I was like, and the guy Gabe, who owned the gym, Gabe DeMarco, he's like, "Joe, this is another chance of being another Rocky movie. You were in Rocky too, and you like this stuff." I go, "I didn't say I don't want to do it. I just thought you guys were going to put me in as a fighting Tommy Morrison." And they said, No. So yeah, I'm in the scene in the Blue Horizon, and a really cool thing. I know I'm getting off of this, but really cool thing that just happened last month. Well, two things. I was inducted into the Baltimore Boxing Hall of Fame.
Was that the picture you sent me here? I think. Let me pull it up, bro.
Yes.
This it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's me as running with him right now. Yeah, that was there. Yep. And but I don't know if I sent you the picture of it, but a guy showed up. I think he was from Virginia, and he was kind of a fan. He's a big boxing fan, so he known me a long time, and I've run into him here and there. Older guy. He showed up with a seat back, just the back of the seat, wooden seat from the Blue Horizon that was verified. It had like a plaque on it, nothing else on it, and had me sign it at the Hall of Fame. He showed up with it just so I could, because he knew I was being inducted, sign it and put Rocky 5. He goes, please, and can you put Rocky 5? Because I know you were in Rocky 5, and it was at the Blue Horizon. I said, yeah. And I said, you know, and he was like having a, you know, like, it was the best day of his life. I was like, oh, I'm really honored because, you know, that you remembered that and that you asked me to, I'm the only person that signed it. He goes, no one else will ever sign this. He said, this is going up in my whatever. And I said, you know, but, yeah, you know,
yeah,
but, yeah, you know, and when we were making that Creed movie, they're just about to do one of the scenes, the scene where Apollo, Adonis, you know, Creed is jumping rope,
right.
and he stops and hears the bell, and Rocky says, yo, that bell don't mean stop, that bell means hell, you know, right? Keep going, right? So they were setting up a little trolley track where the camera was going to come forward and back. They're getting it all ready, and he's just sitting in his chair with the newspaper waiting. And he said, come here. And I said, what? And he said, you know, did you I heard something in LA about you. And I was like, what? I'm like, no, this is bad. I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, no. He said, did you really fight Tex Cobb? I said, yeah. I said, he goes, tell me the story. I said, you don't need to hear that fucking story. You know, and he goes, no. And I said that, and they're like, Mr. Stallone, we're ready to, you know, Joe, you got to move. We're ready to do it. He goes, you people can wait. You tell me the story. I said, all right, you know. So I proceed to explain to him that for charity, I was in a charity event. And again, it was at the Armory in Northeast Philly. And we were raising money for Frank Cappuccino, who had been a well-known referee. His son was sick and had Parkinson's disease. He needed constant care. So we're raising money for the nursing care. So everybody's, you know, paired off pretty even. It's all ex-fighters. And this is like over 20 years ago. And I was supposed to fight another guy like my size. And he don't show up. And the guy that Tex Cobb was supposed to fight didn't show up. So they come in, they said, Joe, we're going to make you the main event. And I said, my guy didn't show up. They said, no, you and Tex Cobb. I said, all right, whatever. My father's like, what are you, fucking nuts? He's a fucking huge. I go, Dad, I already got my hands wrapped up. I'm dressed. I'm ready to go. I said, everybody takes a beating sometime. Today's going to be my day, I guess. I'm like, you know, we'll try to make it fun. Don't worry about it, you know. And he said, "Oh my God, what the?" He's like, "Well, you got to wear a headgear and all this." And I'm like, "Nah, he's not gonna." He goes, "Then you're not." I said, "All right, I'll wear the headgear."
Now,
right?
Not to interrupt you, but you're 5'2", and how big's
Tex Cobb? He's about 6'4", 6'5". Yeah, he was like 250. I was 145 pounds. Yeah. So I said, "All right, you know." So now this was all planned just for fun. But it wasn't supposed to be with him. So I have my sons who are now grown. They were 4 and 5 years old working, and they got the Q-tips in their mouth, and they've got little corner jackets with the eyeballs like they're supposed to be me, you know. And so, you know, so I beforehand, I said, yo, Tex, I got my 4 and 5 year old son going to work the corner. I said, can we go easy here? I don't want my kids to see me all bloody. And they said, oh, they're going to see worse than that, white boy. Biggest white guy in the world calls everybody white boy, right? So I'm like, fuck, right? Boxing commissioner comes over to me, goes, Joe, don't get him nuts. I'm like, say you tell him, right? I'm like, he ain't listening. No kidding.
My God.
Get in the ring, right? The referee comes over to me. Rudy Battle, right? Older black guy comes over and he says, hey, Joe, you know this is just for fun, right? I said, would it matter if I was serious? And he goes, no. I went, right. So I said, just tell him to be cool. He comes back. He goes, he's not listening. I said, right. So before the fight, as soon as I agreed to this, I told my wife, I called her into the locker room to go in the car, in the trunk. I got a pair of 10-ounce extra large gloves, right? And that's what a heavyweight would wear, like a bigger guy, right? Well, over 154 pounds. They wear 10-ounce gloves. Extra large just means it's wider, so it would fit a bigger guy's hand. But it only was 10 pounds. We were supposed to be wearing 16-ounce sparring gloves. Ironically, he was beating me up with my own fucking gloves. They were my sparring gloves he was wearing, right?
My God.
So he's got the 16s, but I said, the 10s will look big on me. Like they'll look like I'm wearing, you know, these extra large. Because, you know, So I was like, fuck it. And I skinned them back. I make sure my knuckles were sticking through the gloves. I said, yeah, it's my only shot.
Right.
So I said to my father, bring a friggin' folding chair from the audience. He said, what, are you going to hit him with it? I said, no. I said, bring it in. I said, when they call us to the center of the ring, you put the chair down. I get up on the chair. And we'll make it like a joke of it. And I'll growl at him, or, like, yeah,
Right.
and we'll lighten it up. Don't worry about it. He's like, he brings out the chair. He goes over again in his face, and he shoved me right off the
Wow.
chair. Boom! I go head over heels, and I'm like, my wife is videotaping this whole damn thing at the time, right?
Right.
I've watched it a few times, but he proceeds, right? We come out, and it was just like I said to Sloan. I said, it's just like in the beginning of with you and Thunderlips. I said, Reagan,
Right.
I was dipping into his body and just tapping in the body, going, is this cool? Are we good? Are we good? He takes a swinging kick at my head. I was like, Jesus Christ, because he had been a kickboxer also, right?
Well.
Like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, the referee's going, you can't kick, So he just proceeds to just everywhere I went to move, he would just boom, boom, plow me in the face, boom, boom. And I just got to the point where I just had my hands down, going, come on, hit me. And he was, not a great plan, but he was, in my defense, he wasn't backing me up, but I wasn't doing anything too well to him. But so my cheek, broke my cheek, broke my nose, right? My cheek's starting to swell up. My 4-year-old son takes the end swell out, the cold steel, puts it on my cheek. And afterwards, I said, hey, Jojo, how'd you know how to do that? He goes, easy, Dad. I watch you on TV. I said, oh,
wow.
my God.
Nice.
Right? So it's the last round. And my father's like, you got to get a good one in there, Ronnie. You got to get something, And I said, I got an idea, and he wasn't wearing a cup, right?
Oh, no.
So I'm left-handed, so I figured I got
Right.
down low and I tapped him in the nuts with a right uppercut, right?
Yeah.
And it made him lean forward, and I threw every goddamn thing I had with an overhand left right on his jaw.
Nice.
And he flew from the center of the ring back into the corner. If he was only a few feet, there was a foot or two further than hit the corner, friggin', he would have went down. And he's over, and he's like in the corner, and he's like shaking out the cobwebs. I'm just standing in the middle of the ring, like, oh boy, like what's gonna happen now? And like shakes him off and looks at me like, you just did that to me. He ran at me, and I backed up into the corner, and he's just plowing me, and I'm like catching punches, like Jesus. And the timekeeper was a guy named Jimmy that I knew. And and I'm like, Jimmy, ring the fucking bell. And he's like, he's looking at his watch. He's looking at his. I'm like, ring the fucking bell. Friggin', he rings the bell. Friggin', and what's Tex do? Scoops me right up like a little baby and tried to throw me out of the ring. And I grabbed him with the glove. I just caught it before I was going to go over. And friggin', I wouldn't. And he's trying to throw me over there. And I'm like, I ain't going. And so we get done the fight. Come over and we're in the center of the ring. And he says to my kids, your daddy got a lot of heart. He wouldn't go down. I was trying to knock him out. And he wouldn't. I go, why? Why were you trying to knock me the fuck out? We're not even getting paid for this. I said, look at my fucking face. And he was like, he's like, yeah, you're a badass. I said, yeah. So I said to Stallone, and now bear in mind, Stallone hates when you imitate him. Hates it, right? And I said, at the end, I said, that's Sly. I go, you know what got that big laugh he has? That big and he goes, yeah. And I went, when we were going to take a picture. I said, sometimes charity really hurts. And he goes, I was like, and I was like, well, where you heard that about that? He goes, yeah, I heard this little guy fucked Tex Cobb and was holding his own with him. And I went, and if you want to call holding my standing there taking a beating, I said, yeah, but we got to be very friendly after that. And, but yes.
Was Tex Cobb from Philly?
He's from Texas.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
He'd been a football player, every college football player, everything like that. But when he started boxing, they brought him to Philly. He's a crazy dude.
I remember him being on WIP with Angelo Cataldi years ago.
But Angelo, oh my God!
Yeah,
I was on there.
Were you?
Yes, I got talked into trying out for the Wing Bowl. Okay, Then we're
To
going
like
back.
as a contestant.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I had El Wingador on here
I'm good friends.
probably
I'm good friends
couple
with Wings. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
September. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very good friends with him. But way back, somebody talked me into it. So I called in, said I wanted to do it. And I said I was little, right?
Yeah.
And back then, we're going back almost, God,
Started.
28 years ago, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Everybody back then, they were all big slobs. That was the point. You were supposed to be a big fat guy that was going to eat a bunch of
Right.
wings, right? This was before Joey Chestnut and the Asian girl and all that stuff,
The
right?
Black Widow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I go in and they said, well, what are you going to do when you come in to qualify? I said, I'm going to eat 50 of my wife's homemade meatballs. They're like, 50? I go, yeah, it's about 6 pounds of meat. I said, I'm going to do it. They're like, oh, okay, right? So I go in, and Joe Conklin, who was on the show at the time too,
Right.
and we knew each other because he was a little older, but we grew up in the same neighborhood. And so he comes in and he's like, oh, so I'm doing Rocky, he's doing Mickey. They're like, oh my God, a movie broke out, right? They said, all right, let's get down to this. And Cataldi kept going, he's so small. And I said, I told you I was small. I said, I'm doing this for all the small guys, right? So he says, so he's like, all right. So the guy that was in there before, he got I think he got 10 minutes or 15 minutes to eat a pizza. I was like, big deal, right?
Right.
3.5 minutes he gave me, right? I said, all right, no problem. I'll do it. They're like, what do you need? I go, I just need a cup of water. Just a little cup of water, and they're like, okay. And 50 fucking meatballs I fucking downed in 3 minutes. I still had 30 seconds to go, and I was done. I'm freaking, he's like, oh my God, you really like those things. I said, I told you they're good. I even bought them some in,
Were they the average size meatballs?
Yeah, like a meatball, and they, and they're like, oh my God, so they're like, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm in. And they're like, well, we got to go to commercial. Friggin' goes to commercial. He goes, come here, I want to talk to you. I'm like, what? He goes, look, we can't have this. You're going to embarrass these guys. And I go, yeah, I know I will. I said, because I can eat them all day long. I said, I don't care how many you put in front of me, and the hotter, the better. They're like, they're not even hot. I was like, oh my God, that's a joke. And he said, yeah, look, we can't have this. This is for big gluttonous slob guys. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, but I told you I'm coming. But I can do this. I can, I can upset this thing. And they were like, no, look, here's what we want to do. We want to make you a super fan. I said, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? And he goes, well, you call in, once or twice, maybe 3 times a week. And call in the morning, and then do like a couple of your voice, like the Rocky voice and this and that. And I said, wait a minute. I said, well, all right, well, what are we talking? He goes, you comment. I go, no. What are we talking here? Money wise. He goes, oh, there's no money. You just get to be. I go, wait a minute. So I'm going to get up extra early. Well, before I go to work, I'm out there doing cement work. That I'm going to come on here on your show just to build your fucking ratings, and you're not going to pay me. You want me to get the fuck out of here? I said, you just wasted my fucking time. Now I got a fucking stomach ache. I was like, fuck. I went home. I didn't. I don't think I felt right for 2 fucking days. I ate 50 friggin' meatballs.
I can imagine. God.
Yeah, but he was like, but then in the end, you see now there's guys, normal sized people who are doing it, doing
right.
Yeah,
I know.
And I've been to a few of those wing balls. They're crazy.
I was in a couple of them, and I didn't go till it was at the Wells Fargo, but I know it started off at
it started off in a hotel.
It was like the Four Seasons.
Yeah.
Ben Frank, or it started off small, and then it was like
then
the Armory.
And then it just blew up.
Yeah, and then it was, before it was sold out, and it was. Yeah. Now I know El Wingador does the he does something now, cheerleaders on Dell.
Yeah, the wing pole.
Yeah, that's a
wing pole. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, we've done some things together, me and him. We did a couple of movie type things and stuff like that. Yeah, he's he was on my talk show a million years ago, right before he was he had to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he was came out with the sauces and all that he has out currently.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah, good guy, big guy. Freaking eat like a son of a bitch.
oh yeah, I was going to say to you, like, you were in what? Like, which Rocky was your favorite if you had to choose?
My favorite Rocky
Hmm.
that it was in, or Rocky that just Rocky.
Well, just everything with doing all the
I would
technical
say
stuff
I would
behind
say
the
one
scenes.
is my favorite movie of the
Right.
Rockies.
Oh
Right? 'Cause
no, just what you were working in.
what I worked in. Well, I'll probably have to say two, because that's what started it all. That's what, like
Right.
I still to this day make, if that's on TV and that scene running with Rocky is on, I make my wife and my kids watch it, because I tell them that you wouldn't exist. And I tell my
Right.
wife, I wouldn't know you. I said, because of this movie. I said, I met my wife where I'm in a place I wasn't supposed to be there. She wasn't supposed to. It just happened, and I would have never been in that place. But I was with somebody that I knew through boxing. That I walked into that place. I would have never been in boxing if I wasn't in Rocky 2. I said, so we would have
Right.
never met. We would have never met. We hadn't met all the way to that point, and we didn't even grow up that far away from each other. And
Okay.
and I said, we would have never met. I said that movie. So that movie like set the tone,
For your life.
yeah. There's a museum in South Philadelphia
Mhm.
that's for Italian immigration, and me being an immigrant, they enshrined me, and
Okay.
it
Nice.
starts with Columbus and Vespucci, right, and it
Yeah.
ends with me.
Okay.
And in there, they have a whole room that has all my stuff in it. Everything I've done, movie stuff, boxing stuff. When I was used to do a tribute to Evil Knievel, the
Remember,
outfit I
yeah,
used to wear.
remember yours
Yeah,
talked
he
about
jumped over
that.
5 cars to a ring of fire after I work a show. We were doing the parking lot after the fights. But
Right.
everything I was when I was a pro wrestler, everything. And they say my section is, they call it living the American dream.
Mhm.
Sometimes it might be an American nightmare. But the first thing I show whenever they have kids that come from a grade school, high school, or college, that are
Right.
maybe their Italian club, whatever, they're just, the school comes for the tour, they make sure that I can be there. And
Mhm.
at the end, I pop out, give them a little speech, and for a little while, and tell them everything, how I wound up here, and da da da, and and that picture of me running with Rocky is right there.
Nice.
That's where I say it all started.
Wow. And as they said, the rest is history. Now,
Right.
as far as your other movies, what other movies have you been in?
I've been in over 100 movies. You're not going to see that on IMDb because it's my job to put them up. There's a lot of them that I would never want anybody even know that I was in.
Right.
But not like I'm doing pornos or anything, but there's a lot of junk that I had done that was
Right.
just, but uh like I said, 4 of the Rocky movies. I was on The Sopranos once.
Were
Uh
you? What was that
yeah,
like?
that was pretty cool. That was a fluke thing. I had this really horrible agent. This woman would send me on these like wild goose chases. Like she would like read only probably like not even half of what the part was for.
Right.
Like sent me one time to New York, said, you're going to get the part, you're going to play a husband in an insurance commercial. Well, at the time I was like 30 years old, right?
Right.
I go up there, I walk in, there's a bunch of bald-headed old 80-year-old men in there. I'm like, what the hell is it? And they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm here for the insurance commercial. They're like, it's a Medicare commercial. They're
My
like, didn't your
God.
agent? I'm like, she said it would play a husband. And like, yeah, this is the husband for his wife sick and dying, and it's a Medicare commercial. I was
Jesus.
like, wow, that's great. And I'm like, so when it came for The Sopranos,
Mhm.
she says, they need a guy just got out of prison, a character to play a guy who just got out of prison, short, stocky, with tattoos, and Italian. And I said, yeah, I can play that. And she said, oh, go up there. So I go up, and Christopher Walken's wife, Georgianne Walken, is the casting director. And I
Okay.
had met her once or twice before for whatever. I don't know where we were, but I had. So I
Right.
came in, and she said, Joey, right? I said, yeah. She said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here for the part of Richie Aprile. And she said,
No
and if you
kidding.
remember who Richie Aprile was, he's the one
Yeah.
who had sex with Janice with the gun. Thank
Yeah.
God I didn't get the part. Jesus Christ. But
Wow.
so, yeah. So she goes, well, what were you, born in prison? I went, what do you mean? She said, the character just did 25 years in jail. She's like, this character has to play minimum a 50-year-old guy or old. Like, we're looking for like a guy like in his 60s. And she said, and trust me, you play an 18-year-old before you played a 50 or 60-year-old guy.
Holy
And
shit.
I said, I'm like, can you do me a favor, please? This woman keeps doing this to me all the time. I'm like, I don't get it because she ain't going to get her 10% if I don't get a part. So like, it doesn't make sense, but can you do something, So they gave me like this little bit part where I was with Big Pussy in a scene where they were looking for the kid for kid from Bronxdale when he shot Christopher.
Oh,
Yeah. Brancato, Lilo Brancato.
Yeah, Lilo.
Yeah.
Brancato.
Who I've run into here and there every once in a while. Yeah. But yeah. So that was the big, that was the big Sopranos thing. But I guess it's, like I said, better off than playing Richie Aprile. But
Wow.
and he didn't make it to the end either.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah, I've been in so many different mob movies and stuff. Trust me, I'm not. Like I say, especially I say it at that museum. I'm not doing my culture a big
right.
a big service here. I'm either playing a mob guy, a prisoner, or a boxing guy. It's usually
Wow.
I once played a farmer, but we were in Sicily. It was a farm. I was supposed to be a farmer in Sicily, and the mob's out to kill me. So me and my best friend, who they're having him kill people for them, me and him wind up killing them. So I was still a farmer that wound up killing people. So it's, and it's just usually me with a gun in my hand. So I just did, I did a few recently. I did one for Vince Minetti, his film, Washington Ave.
Right.
Yeah. I played a hot-headed, younger mob guy named Frankie D. And, that was pretty cool. That's been in like 10 film festivals already, and it won 2 in California, and it won 1 in Rome.
Really?
I was really surprised. And I just did another one for him with a couple guys called the Pasta and Cheech Crew.
Right.
It's like a comedy, and I played a mob boss in that one.
Okay.
And Don Carmine or something like that. And Don Carmelo I played. And then I just did a cartoon.
Really?
Yeah, it's an adult cartoon, trust me, because I said vagina in so many different ways I never even knew.
Right.
It's called The American Santa Claus in Vietnam. Santa's like a freaking mercenary. It's crazy. And but I play Sergeant Duke Stryker. So, and I knew the people doing it, but they wanted me to be in it, but they said, just send a video in if you're doing it like 2 different ways. So I did it my way, in my voice, and I wore my old like tank helmet and friggin', and army fatigues, and Marine fatigues,
right.
And I'm like, so I did it in my voice, and then they said, and do it in another one. So I did kind of like, remember Stripes?
Yeah.
Sergeant Holter, like that, I was like, yes, I was like, and I'm Sergeant Duke Stryker. Hey, soldier, get off your fucking ass, that kind of shit, right? They were dying laughing, calling me, right? You got to do it like that. So it's all right, no problem. They hit me with like 11 pages of all for all the different episodes that are going to be done. And I went into the thing and I said, well, how long do I have? They're like, as long as you got to take, I don't know, probably take an hour, hour and a half. It's all right. Let's try it. And I said, see if I can, my voice will hold up. Banged it all 11 pages out, one take, 30 minutes, got it done. They were, and it looks really great. But maybe someday people will be coming to get my autograph at Comic Cons. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's a really the way the animation is nowadays. I mean, it's so incredible.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I've seen a little of it, and the character, they even tried to make him look a little bit like me, but it was like an homage type thing. It was Sergeant Duke Stryker is John Wayne was in the Iwo Jima movie, and his name was Sergeant John M. Stryker. So they just cut it in it because they call him the Duke. So that was just Duke Stryker. I was like, okay,
Right.
I'll take, I'll take that. But a lot of it, they literally took almost word for word stuff in an article in an Italian newspaper that came out around Easter this past year about me. And the guy read the whole article. So I'm going, so it's like the character's going, my character's going, when I get out of here, maybe I'm going to go back home and I'm going to become a cut man because I've been fixing you bums up all this time here. And then, or maybe, you know what, maybe I'm going to open a pizza place. And I'm like all the different shit I've done in my life. And I was like, I'm like, wow. I said, you guys either have no imagination or this is the smartest thing you ever did. But
what is the most favorite thing you've done in your career?
Most favorite, probably doing stunts. I got to be honest with you. I love. See, I'm like a real adrenaline junkie. I love all that. Anyway, you know. And
I did. I think. All right, go ahead. I'm not saying. I remember one thing you told me, or not me. You in your interview when you jumped out a window.
Yes. That's what. Yeah. I for one of the first times I ever did that was we were doing. I was wrestling at the time as a pro wrestler, right? So they got a bunch of us to be the characters and also the stunt guys because we're doing all these stunts in the ring and stuff. And my character, I was playing a mob guy, and it was called the Black Ninja, and it was about a Johnny Cochran type lawyer. By day, he gets them off, and at night he shows up as a ninja and kills them because he knows they're guilty.
Right.
It's crazy, right? So it's all this martial arts and shit,
Right.
But so I literally actually was one of the only people to survive the whole thing and live. But they had me, they're like, Joe, where do you want the pad? And I'm like looking down, I'm like, yeah, that looks good. I'm like 3 stories up. I'm like, the fuck do I know? I lay bricks. I'm like, all right, So, from the back of the house, and we're in Germantown, bringing 3 a.m. It starts snowing. Bringing there I am going through the sugar glass, boom, all the way down.
Wow.
Kept doing it over and over again to get it, because it's supposed to look like he like flipped me out of the window. The ninja flipped me out with his feet. So we had to keep doing it that way. And And but yeah, stuff like that, I like total, and truthfully, when I first landed the first one, my legs hit the ground. I missed the pad. Like I only landed half onto the pad. And I'm like, all right, and I'm thinking, and I'm like going, am I going to get up for work for this? But, the stuff like that, fight scenes where, and then car chases and things like that. I love that type of stuff. They're paying you to act like a maniac, like really drive around like a nut and shit, or jump a motorcycle or something, or, but yeah. But, the thing that I guess I would say I love the most is being a cut man. I mean, because if I didn't, I would have been out of this a long time ago. But, I guess, like say 6 Hall of Fames later and an award that's named after me, a cut man award I just gave out on Sunday, the Salute the Philly Boxers. I was the MC for it. And so I gave out all the awards, but there's one named after me because I got it 15 years in a row that I said, you know what, I'm going to step aside, give it to somebody else. And they said, but you get the votes. I said, well, give my vote to somebody else. So every year now, I kind of have the last say on who would get it, make sure it's the right person. And it's called the Joey I Award. And it's pretty cool because I'm not even dead.
Congratulations with that.
Yeah, but that and $1.50, I can't get a cup of coffee anywhere,
Yeah, right. I didn't know you were friends with. Oh, yeah, I did ask you about Tony, friend of mine too, Tony Penikill.
Oh, the Tornado.
Yeah,
he is
great guy.
I should have sent it to you. I had a picture of me and him and a couple other guys. God, about 10 years ago, we were at a fight, and he's funny. He's
amazing. He does Halloween wrestlers. He does a character for.
My wife said something one time. She went, "Did you ever see this guy?" I said, "Yeah, Tony Panicali." She goes, "I knew you would know him. How the hell did I know?" I go, "Yep." I also know the Philly sports guy.
Yeah,
Philly sports
I
guy,
know.
right?
Jamie, yeah.
You know how we started that? He started that. We was arm wrestling, and I was doing arm wrestling, and he
No
showed
kidding.
up. Me and another guy started promoting them because I was done arm wrestling. My shoulders are shot, the whole thing.
Right.
I went to the world arm wrestling championships. I mean, like you
Oh,
ever
well.
see Over the Top? Stallone was
Yeah.
in. It was just
Lincoln
like
Hawk.
you're out there. There's 2,000 guys
Right.
competing for 4
In
days.
Vegas, right?
Yeah, yep. And that's where
Wow.
we were. We were in Vegas at the Thomas and Mack Arena when I did it. But and I've been all over with it. And so it was kind of winding that career down. And a guy said to me, "Oh, could you help me?" I was like the only person showed up at one of his events to arm wrestle. And I'm going, "Yo, where the hell is it?" And he goes, "You've been a promoter for a long time and everything. Could you help me promote these?" And I'm like, "You know what? No problem." So we started doing them. And that Jamie showed up, and he showed up wearing like face paint.
Really?
You know what I mean? Like the first few times he would, he was starting to wrestle. And I told another guy showed up dressed up like Stallone in Over the Top. The hat on backwards, the wife beater, and the work pants and shit. And I walked up to him and I said to both of them, I said, that only works if you can arm wrestle. And they were like, "Oh,"
Right.
But that's where he started, doing that. And then he started.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I know Jamie pretty well.
Yeah. Nice guy.
Yeah. Him and Tony, Tony's family, very
Tony,
down to earth.
I've known him for so long. Tony's a funny dude.
I met Tony and his family. It was either 2010 or 2011. I went out to see the Phillies play the Cubs and ended up staying in the same hotel. And since then, we've been friends.
Since then, you've been friends. Yeah. Well, Tony's that kind of guy. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't be his friend. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
He's not a love me or hate me guy. Like, I might be a love me or hate me guy, but he's just, you can't.
He has that personality.
Maybe he's not your cup of tea, but you wouldn't hate him. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You just can't not, yeah.
Just an amazing guy. Family's great,
Yep. Yeah, he used to box in college with two guys. One of my fighters, Chuck Mazzacchio, and then another guy, Freddie Druding, who I'm really good friends with. They all boxed in college together.
No, you got me sitting here thinking, if I were to I got to have you back on. I know we're, going here.
Yeah, I told you, you got to tell me.
I know
you got to pull the cord on me.
Nah, you're good. But I was going to say, I was going to try to get Tony on. I see Philly sports guy every so often now. I was going to maybe say this to you, maybe get Tony, PSG, and yourself on here.
Yeah, that'd be
that
great.
Would be.
Yeah, I know Danny good. Yeah, yep, yeah, that would be really good. Yeah, maybe what I have to do is I get you all in my film I'm doing.
I'd be honored.
Doing,
honestly.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, we're doing. It's called the Sharky Twins. We got it. We're doing episodes. Like it's like for Netflix.
Okay.
So it's me and another guy are supposed to be twin brothers, but he's like 6 foot tall. So it's kind of like
twins.
Twins. Yeah. But we're like these like wannabe mob guys, and we're always conning people. We're like pool hustlers and scamming people and fixing fights and we're always doing something. But we always wind up somehow getting the raw end of the stick. Okay. So it's a total comedy. And I wrote it, I'm directing it, producing it, and I'm starring in it. And it's called the Sharky Twins. It took us about almost a year and a half. We just finished and edited the first 8 episodes, and Netflix said, we got to see them all. Don't give us one or a little trailer or this or that. And they,
the whole shebang.
We're interested. If we're interested, boom. And I said, and if they're not, I guess Tubi will get it,
Right.
People come up to me all the time and go, hey, you're an actor or something, right? Yeah, I seen you on Tubi. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you probably did.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely, and it's all shot in Philly. You know what I mean? Like
South Philly, or
mostly South
all over.
Philly, yeah, but we're going all over with it. Yeah.
I'd be honored, honestly. I mean, I was, I know Vince, doing his movies. I was actually.
Yeah, I had Vince in mine. I had him in mine twice already.
Okay.
Yeah. But you never know. You know what I mean? Never
Right.
know what might happen. You know, you might be in it.
I'd be
Nothing
happy.
happens to me.
I'd be
But
honored.
they might pick you and go, "Hey, I like that guy." Yeah.
Right. I mean, hey, I'm dead, dead serious. I mean, I'd love
Yeah.
to
And I'm
give it a
serious. You
shot.
never know. You know, it's all that out of sight, out of mind. If you're
Right.
not out there, ain't nobody gonna. I I was in a couple different things over the years that
Mm-hmm.
somebody else was using footage of for them to get a reality show.
Right.
And then they're going, no, this guy's not the star. They're going, who is this guy? And they're like, I was just in something for like some bit part. And they were
Right.
like, no, we want to make a reality show. When there's 3 times, I think 3 or 4 times, there were pilots made in the different things that I do, different
Right.
businesses and different, one had to do with boxing, one had to do with movie stuff, another one had to do with my auto salvage business that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, but it is what it is. They didn't know, happen. I actually, ESPN came and they did a 30 for 30, the
Mm-hmm.
30 for 30s they do.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, and they the guy begged me, and I said, look, I've been down this road so many times. I said, all these, they want to do a reality show or this or that or whatever you want to do. He's like, well, this isn't really a reality show. It's a 30 for 30. And I go, I know what
Mhm.
30 for 30 is. I've seen them. I
Right.
said, but, and they were like, can we come and observe you at the fights? I said, it's a free country. I said, you
Mhm.
can do whatever you want. I said, I'll be at the Tropicana or wherever the hell I was. I said, this weekend. I said, there's 11 fights. I got 9 of them. I got to work. I
Wow.
said, if I get a chance between them, you can watch the fights. I'll say hello to you. But, I didn't even get halfway through it. And the guy comes, he's like, you got to do this. You got to do this. Because they had originally gone to somebody in New York.
Mhm.
They were looking, and they said, no, we know the guy that you want for this. Because they wanted to do it based on just about being the cut man. Because, they obviously do things, films like that, like documentaries about fighters, managers, trainers, promoters,
Right.
and they said, nobody ever pays attention like the cut man. That's like the really important job. But this can't be just his job. So
Right.
they wanted to. So I finally said, okay, no problem. So for over a year, they followed me around at work. They followed me to the fights. They were filming this, filming that. I was showing them, like, they videoed how I used to practice on myself.
Mhm.
On stopping cuts. So I would take a razor blade with tape around it, so it didn't go too far. And I used to, like, I'd have a stopwatch, and
Mhm.
I'd slice my arm, hit the stopwatch, and see if I got it done within 44 seconds.
Holy
And
shit.
that's how, so they got me to do it.
Mhm.
I'm like, sure. I'm like, let's do, whatever. And they get the camera real close, and I'm cutting my arm up, slicing my arm open, and,
Right.
stopping the cut, and boom, 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 But yeah. So but what happened? They were just almost done. They just needed a little more, and the pandemic hit.
Ugh.
And then they kept getting in touch with me here and there, but just timing wise, they just
Right.
fell on the floor. But I think that would have been really cool. I think that would have been cool.
Wow.
But
I know that damn pandemic did a lot of
yeah, it did a lot. It
people
messed up
dirty.
a lot of things.
Big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Even like, I noticed stuff with, like, films and stuff, movie films and stuff. It's not, it was, I don't know, the way we did things, and the way you were getting picked for films and stuff like that totally changed just between those times and stuff. It's weird. It's just,
Wow.
it really screwed a lot up. But we made it.
We did.
We kept fighting, coming forward, Wasn't going to let no COVID knock me down,
Right. You knocked him down. Won't you try knocking me down there?
What's the most not? Rocky could be a little indignant sometimes. How about right before that happened, and they said, the 2 big guys go, hey, you need some help, Rocky? He goes, there's no pieing contest. The fuck, the guys want to help you. Fucking, like that would almost, in real life, what would happen is 3 big guys would come in and smack the crap out of fucking Rocky, and the other guys are going, I guess it ain't a pieing contest. Go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, we offered now, like, help me now. No.
Well, when they got outside, all the guys started going after him, and
Yeah.
Tommy Guns
He's a punk
beating their ass. Like,
Yeah.
It's like
I tell
throwing
you,
guys into the
you
trash
know who
bags and
choreographed that fight scene?
you do.
Remember Terry Funk, the wrestler?
Yeah.
He did. He
No kidding.
choreographed that fight scene. They got to be pals from when they did Paradise Alley. Remember he was
All right.
Killer in
Yeah.
Paradise, like the wrestling movie. Um,
Actually, he was in Over the Top too.
Over the Top,
Terry
yeah,
Funk.
and he was in Roadhouse too.
Yeah.
But yeah, he in that scene, it's like he invented friggin' MMA. Friggin' he's up there, he's like taking the guy down, taking him down in the middle. You
I
know, he
know.
was like pulling all those like wrestling and friggin' MMA moves and
Right.
shit. I always thought that
Even
was funny. But you know, that to him, that's he hated that movie, Stallone. He
right.
hated Five, right? And I heard it, and I said it to him. We were on the set, and I was like, "Why do you hate Five the most?" I said, if you're in boxing,
Right.
like I am, I said that is the most realistic one of all of them. And he's like, well, "How you doing?" I go, "Well, first of all, if you were going to be realistic, friggin' Rocky would never have happened." Rocky, you have to be ranked somehow, somewhere. You can't just be some guy that even the local promoter doesn't know who the fuck you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh, Rocky Balboa, never heard of him. He's got 64 fights. You never heard of him, right? And and he's fighting a 4-rounder. Now he's going to fight for the title. That would have, but Five is like with everything. It's every fighter. The story is they have it all. And somehow they lose it. They give it all away to their friends or investments or stupid. And what did he do? He didn't know it, but his stupid brother-in-law thought he was doing smart business, and he wound up losing all his money. I stole his money. Shit. There's only a couple just heavyweights. I mean, guys like Larry Holmes. He's the only one who got his money because he owns freaking Easton, Pennsylvania. He owns everything around. Right? Wow. He was smart. And the only other one that I know that had his money, but he died. He was so cheap was Rocky Marciano, but they don't know where he buried it. Wow. He wouldn't go for a glass of water in the desert, right? But these guys, they lose all their money. They wind up right back to where they started in the same neighborhood, in the same gym that they came out of, friggin' hoping that somebody comes in is going to make them $1 million. And I'm like, that whole movie was exactly the truth of it. And then what happens? I've told guys this for so long. It doesn't always matter. You could have been a champ or you could have been this. There's always going to be somebody else that's going to come along, wait for you to build that fighter up and snatch them right from you. And it still happens to this day. And I said, and they're going to walk away from you like they never knew you because, it's the way the boxing business is. And I said, everything but, you fighting, the trainer's fighting the fighter in the middle of the street under the yell and Mickey screaming, "Get up, you son of a bitch." That other than that, but everything else, and I said, and you got to work with your son. He's not here anymore. You got to work with your son in that film. I was like, that should be your best one. I said, because that's the most realistic one. I'm not saying that it had the best acting but I got to give credit. Tommy Morrison, he did do a good job for never ever acting ever before.
All right.
He was thrust into that. I don't think he did a horrible job. I don't think even if he took acting lessons, he would have done any better. He just was him. Yeah.
Well, like Rocky Balboa when he used who was Mason the Lion Dixon?
Oh yeah, Antonio Tarver. Yeah. Right. I don't think either of them did anything any better or worse. You know what I mean?
I think Tarver did a pretty good job as Mason Dixon.
It was a shame. And then Tommy Morrison, he, it was a shame.
And they both did a good job, being boxers.
That's what I'm saying. And, I mean, the worst one out of that was Union Kane, Mike Williams, but he was a fighter too. And, the one who went, "I want Balboa.
Yeah.
I want what you got." He was a real fight, I don't know. I thought that was to me like being in the boxing business and knowing how everything is, like, and they would totally get around any of the, oh yeah, he's got brain damage. No kidding, he's got brain damage. Yeah, take it down to the Caribbean. Nobody gives a shit there. You know what I mean? Take it to Tokyo, like they want in the movie. They wanted to take it to Tokyo, and nobody gives a shit about your head tests there. The whole movie was, and the guy was playing Don King. He did a good job. Only in America.
Right.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
Only in America.
Only in America. A friend of
Sue me
mine was
for
a
what?
limo driver, and it was his limo
Really?
that Rocky hits George Washington Duke up onto,
Yeah.
and he smashed it. And he said they messed up the hood. They had to get a new hood.
So Stallone really got him under the ribs, and he went.
He didn't really get him. The stunt
Yeah.
guy went up
Right.
and threw himself like onto the hood
Wow.
and down onto it and put a giant dent in the hood. My friend Frank, yeah, he was we called him Frankie Limo. And yeah, it was his limo. He was like, yep, he drove them all around in it and the whole, just
Right.
got paid to drive, do any of the limo stuff for it. Yeah.
Sue me for what?
Yeah, sue me for what?
Right.
Yeah, Rocky, yeah, I love when he does that, But I don't know. I thought I like 5 for the realism to it,
I actually enjoyed 5. I mean, even though a lot of people didn't like it, but
yeah, I did too. I remember I went to see it right away when it came out, and I was fighting at the time.
it was
I don't know. I liked it. I wanted to slap his kid upside his head, but the character that his kid played, the
Yeah.
whiny little, you only care about him. Without that him,
Right.
we got to stay where we're at. We got nothing. We got a shot.
Well-
Here's the answer to getting out of the ghetto. You know
Right.
what I mean? Friggin' this fighter is going to help us, but well, you're not. You're not with me every day. Only in the movies. Only in the
Right.
movies does dad never go to work. Or take
Yeah.
your kid to work every day. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Oh, I mean, it was it was like Rocky had a second shot. He
Yeah.
was-
Yeah. That's what it is. Like,
Right.
so many guys, and so many guys I know that were fighters too, they train guys. But I
Yeah.
don't, they try to train their guy to fight just like them. Like Joe Frazier would do it to guys all the time. He wanted
Right.
everybody to fight like he did. He even wanted his son to, and you can't,
Marvis
it's like
Frazier.
raising kids. It's like raising kids. I always tell them, training the fighters like raising. You can't train everybody the same way. You can't treat them the same way.
Right.
My one kid I put through college, the other one you put through a wall. You know what I mean? Type
Right.
thing. It's you can't treat everybody, the same way or train them the same way. And then these guys get all hyped up that they're like, and I've been next to guys that'll say this, that that had been fighters, and they're like, "Oh man, this is awesome!" And they're announcing his fighter, but they're in the ring going, "I feel like I'm fighting again." It's like, no, you're not, man. It's him. It's
Like you
about
get-
him.
It's like
Not
you get
you
that
and me.
jolt back. Yeah.
Yeah.
All over
But
again.
see, the problem is
Mhm.
nothing takes the place of that. Nothing takes
Right.
the place of having been in that ring. I don't
Mhm.
care what the hell you do in the rest of like all the things I've ever done in my life. Nothing takes the place of being in that ring. And ain't nothing they can do to you now other than walk up and shoot you dead that hasn't happened to you in front of thousands of people in your underwear. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Right.
you and the other guy. When it's a single competition sport like that, Reagan, there's nothing that takes the place of it. And like Apollo Creed said, yeah, when it gets quiet, no more, they're not cheering for you no more. That's where
Right.
you get crazy, So it's like
Yeah.
you're always chasing that your whole life. That I don't know. It's just something about that. But and that's why I like to be a cut man because not because I am, but it's not because of what I do. But I'm doing it. The most important person in the corner is the cut man.
Right.
Trainer trains the guy, he gets him there, it's whatever. He's going to be able to give him a little bit of advice. Everything should have already been ingrained in his head anyway.
Right.
But if you don't have a guy who can stop the bleeding or the swelling, and you could be winning every damn round, and the referee come over or the doctor come over and be like, they don't see anybody qualified to do what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
Fights off, and I see
Wow.
that happen all the time.
Mhm.
And I've known guys come into town that came in with their cut man, but the trainer and the cut man will go, we want you to work in the corner. And I'm like, I thought you were the cut man. He's like, I am. And I said, well, why do you want me? And they said, well, I don't know whether you're better than me or not, but
Right.
this is your town. Those judges know you. Those doctors know you. Those referees know you. If it's bad, friggin', they're gonna let you do your job. Me, they would just be like, they've never seen me before. They'd be like, look,
Right.
stop it. And I said, no, you're smart, and I've had that, and it's the truth. And especially PA, Jersey, New York,
Mhm.
places like that, Delaware,
Right.
These doctors don't even come up to the ring half the time. They'll just go, Joe, how's he look? Oh, you got it. No problem. Don't worry about it. I'll let you know if it's too bad,
Nice.
But, and that's the most important thing you do. You never let the fighter think it's bad, even if his eyeball. I've had a guy's eye hanging out. You know what I mean? Yeah, put his eye back in, got him to the hospital. When I see him now, 20 years later, he's always, if he comes to a fight, he's, this guy saved my eyesight,
Right.
But
Wow.
but you gotta let them know, yeah, it's a scratch. Don't worry about it. Because if they get all upset, then they'll bleed more, the blood gets pumping, and then the 90% of it, the fight is mental. 90% of it. So if that little thing is gonna, I just had a fighter that he fought for a world title back in. He's from Millville, and they call him Cornflake. Right? He has about 50 fights, and doesn't look like he'd be a fighter. Milk white kid, baby face, but he got a shot to fight one of the Charlo brothers, Jamel Charlo, and so we went out to Vegas back in May. But about 10 days before, he calls me up. He said, I got to come see you. I said, what? He said, I got cut. I'll send you a picture. I said, yeah, you got to come see, get here now. And he said, well, what do you think we should do? And I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, I'm telling you right now, that cut's going to open up on the first punch. It's only 10 days out. I said, I can cover it up. I'll patch it up. I said, and we'll even put some makeup on it that the doctors won't even know before the fight. And I said, but this is mental. I said, is that going to bother you that this is going to open or anything? And he said, no, not at all. I said, you sure? I can do my job once it opens. It's not a problem. I'm not asking you about that. Saying, is that going to get in your head between now and then in the ring that's going to, he said, no, not even. I said, okay. Because if you said to me, yeah, that might bother you, I'd say postpone the fight or back out completely. And it was a big payday for him. So I said, get here. I'll patch you up. I patched him up. Right. So he had to leave in 2 days for a press conference out in LA. And I said, he goes, what am I going to do? I said, I'm telling you what you're going to do is you get the biggest, darkest pair of fucking sunglasses, play Joe Cool, and do not ever, unless you're going to bed and there's nobody else in the fucking room, do not take those glasses off. At the press conference, just play Joe Cool. Fucking right. And he said, he's like, okay, no problem, whatever, and he did. Yeah. I seen he had a picture of him on the plane. He's got these big, totally dark glasses. Perfect, right?
Right.
Get to the fight. And I again, before the fight, I said, look, I've known you longer than some of my own kids. And I said, so, I want you to make sure, that you get through this all right. And all. And I said, don't listen to all these other guys that are hyping you up with all. He goes, no, I know. He goes, and you're right. You have known me. I said, yeah, you're like another one of my kids. He said, so please just don't let me get hurt. And I said, I won't. I'm not going to let that happen. Right. And I said, and don't you know, the one I fixed didn't open. The other side opened.
Wow.
He got cut on the other side.
My God.
Yeah.
So he was good throughout the fight with the bad eye, and
with the bad eye. The
Wow.
other eye opened up, and then in about the 8th round, he had enough, and he wasn't going to quit. So I did because I was in there because after the first round, that other eye opened up. So I'm in there. Like when the guy gets cut, if he's not cut and he just may be swollen, I'm usually working off to the side. The minute they get cut, I go in. Then the trainer stays off to the side. You can only have one guy in. So, but I was glad to do that because see, I can read guys' body language and their eyes and and you got to be able to do that, know that, the minute you say, hey, you all right? The guy or the doctor says you all right and they look away, that means no, but I'm not going to say yes, things like that. And so
just body language and
total. You got to read all the body language stuff. When you get a guy tougher than shoe leather and he's like, I'm fucking fine. Yeah, he's fine. Let him go, But when you get a guy going, I'm fine, you're like, no, you're not, but they just don't want to quit, and I get it, But so he what do you call so we were out in Vegas and they didn't let me patch him up. They patched him up, right?
Okay.
I'm watching and I'm like, you took my job. And they're like, what? after, they're in the back sewing them. I said, I do. They're like, wait, we've never met a cut man. You do this? And I'm like, yes. I said, I make sure all my guys don't have to go to the hospital, because I said in Philly and Jersey and all, they have to go to the hospital to get that done. Vegas, I know you guys will sew it up here. New York will do that too. I said, they don't do that. I do it. I do it right there in the locker room. They never have to go to the hospital. And I don't want to kind of almost and I do a better job than you're doing. I didn't say it, but what happens?
You're thinking
the day I'm being inducted into the Baltimore Hall of Fame, he was fighting in Bally's in Atlantic City in his final fight. He's also promotes. So he was promoting his own show. He was promoting it at Bally's, and he was all mad I couldn't come. I said, well, I've known for 9 months I'm being inducted. You just planned 2 months ago to put this show on. I said, then don't, I said, but you're not going to need me. I said, don't worry about it. I'm figuring it's his last fight. He's got it all worked out. Well, like he described, the guy came like it was the Super Bowl. I said, yeah. I said, Flake, they make movies about shit like this, like Rocky movies. Riggin, he thought, get this guy out of here. But he goes, and I wasn't even there. But what's he do that night? As soon as I'm at the after party for the Hall of Fame, and I get a text with a picture of him. He's like, I need to see you tomorrow as soon as you get home. And I was like, yep. The one that opened up in Vegas, not the one that opened up that I fixed, opened back up really bad. Looked like he had a twat on his eye. You know what I mean? So I made him get his ass to me the next day, and I patched him up, and I said, now next time make sure that he goes, I'm done. I'm not doing this I'm definitely done.
Oh man.
Promoting. I said, good. And he said, he goes, that guy, I didn't take it serious enough. My head wasn't in. I said, it hasn't been. And I hate to tell you, but you got a 5-year-old daughter now and you're married. I was at your wedding. I'm like, I hate to sound like a movie, but you got civilized, like Mickey was saying. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the worst thing that could happen to a fighter. You got civilized.
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah. But I probably taken too much of your time up.
I love it. I mean, that's why I said, got to have you back. I know, like, when you were saying, events, like putting it all in one show. But I definitely want to get you back on soon.
Hey, Fuji, I thought you said there weren't going to be no rematch.
Don't want one. But definitely got to get you on. We'll get Tony on and Philly Sports Guy, and just that could be like that could be around.
That'd be around.
That could be like
of like craziness.
That could be a 4-hour show, because I know Tony could talk.
Oh my God, yeah.
Tony could.
I did his. He had a little like a radio show or something. And they oh my God, we were on forever. We were just like forever. We were going on and on. Oh my God.
I've had Tony on a couple different occasions.
But no, this is good. I mean, at least
this is great. Love it.
It's what I like when I get to come on somebody's, and it's not the same thing, even though everything always starts out with Rocky, and I get it, you know what I mean. But at least everything doesn't, there's more that we talk about.
Well, I wanted to go around, not just talk about Rocky, Stallone, like just you, like as an individual, like I mean, guy, you could probably write like 10 books. With everything you've been
to write a book. I'm like, I write a book and 5 people will read it, and I'll be 2 of them.
I'll just say, like, with everything, movie, whatever you've been in, and just like you said, you were going to go for the just the Richie Aprile. I was like, damn, because I'm a huge Sopranos fan.
Yeah.
Just remembering I forget the guy's David something.
David Preval.
Ooh.
You there?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell happened.
You just went like it.
No, I know.
Yeah, David Preval was
yep.
But
just like that whole, just picturing that whole scene.
Yeah. He wasn't in too many things either. He was in Mean Streets. He was the bar owner in Mean Streets.
Was he?
Yeah. And I think his name was Tony in that one. And then he was in Shawshank Redemption.
Did not know that.
Yeah. And other than that, it was and then he was on Everybody Loves Raymond.
I was going to say, I think he was on
Stefania.
Right.
Stefania's his beautiful Italian girlfriend. Yeah, that was his father. Yeah,
Right. I was going to say, I knew he was on TV after he got
he was on. He
whacked
was.
off The Sopranos
Yeah. Yep.
after Tony killed him.
Yep. Yeah. No,
Right.
she killed him.
That's right. She
Janice
shot him at
freaking
the
shot him
table.
because he
Yeah.
he put my food on a fucking thing when it ready to boom.
Yeah.
She
But
she's like, what did you do with him? Oh, we buried him up on the hill under a tree. Really? No. He was like, fucking Woody, get serious.
that's right, because I think he punched her in the face.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Cracked her and then said, make my food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, you don't have like the balls. And then she
Yep.
shot him right in the
What are you
chest
gonna
and he
do with that?
fell back.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yep.
But, it was a pleasure.
I just saw
Yeah.
Christopher in a movie, and he was really good. It was called Song Sung Blue. With it was about a Neil Diamond impersonator. It just came out, and it's a true story.
Right.
And Christopher from The Sopranos, Michael
Michael Imperioli,
plays
yeah.
a Buddy Holly impersonator. Because
Really?
it's all about they're all on that circuit of they're working like corner bars and stuff and
Right.
conventions as impersonators.
Is this the movie about Neil Diamond?
Yeah, it's the guy that is a Neil Diamond impersonator.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman plays it. Really does a great job.
And Kate Winslet?
Kate Hudson. Kate Hudson
that's-
plays his wife, and
Right.
they were called Lightning and Thunder.
Right.
And they were out in Wisconsin, and they got really big. They actually opened up for Pearl Jam at one point.
Wow. I remember seeing, I think that just came out in the theater.
Yeah, that's what I did on New Year's Eve. Instead of going out, me and my wife went to see that. It was really good. Really good movie. It's true. But it was so funny. Yeah, I kept laughing every time I see he's up there with the black, the horn rimmed glasses and playing Buddy Holly shit. And it was like, oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you think
he's a good actor now. Yeah.
When you think of Hugh Jackman now, it's like you think of X-Men.
Yes. Yeah.
Him playing
he was playing
Wolverine.
an impersonator of
Wow.
But and Jim Belushi was in it. He was really good. It was a good movie.
I have to check that out.
Yeah. Yep. Especially if you like Neil Diamond.
Yeah.
My family was so big on Neil Diamond. We would like say it was like Christmas Eve or whatever. We would literally be standing up when they played Sweet Caroline. And I'm talking in the 70s. You freaking lined up everybody around the giant table, like 30 or 40 of us in the family. Everybody's holding hands and singing the song.
Wow.
Sounds
like Fenway Park.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Yeah. And my aunt who passed away recently, she would she just keep screaming, yeah, and the whole time.
Right.
But we'll have to get some more,
definitely gonna have to get you on.
I gotta let's see what else we got. Oh, I got a trading card coming out of me. You know how the old baseball cards?
Baseball card.
Well, they have boxing ones, and they used to have them, but they brought them back, and all the proceeds go towards the Amateur Association to help the USA Boxing Association and the New York Hall of Fame and the New Jersey Hall of Fame. And in April, I think their one is coming out of me. They asked for, but hell yeah, that's every kid's dream to be on a playing card, right?
Hey,
so
right.
Now people can throw darts at them, but probably the biggest honor. Now, have you been in South Philly and you've seen the Joey Giardella statue on Passyunk Ave?
I haven't been down there in a while, but
no,
I haven't seen
years.
it.
There's been a statue right in the middle of the street on Passyunk Ave, right in Passyunk and Mifflin. There is Joey Giardella was middleweight champ of the world in the 60s.
Was that by Maris or where Maris?
Yep. Which Maris is gone now.
Right.
Yep. And the museum that I was talking about, the Italian Museum, is right across the street from where the museum is.
Okay.
I mean, where the statue is. Well, the guy who made that statue of Joey Giardella, he also made one of Jersey Joe Walcott.
Okay.
Right. And that one's in Camden on the waterfront. They're both beautiful statues. I'll send you pictures of them.
Yeah,
and I was at both unveilings of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the guy. His name's Carl Lavach. He's an incredible sculptor. So I always would break his balls. And I said, Carl, when you make mine, you won't need too much material. won't be that big.
Right.
So he always laughs, whatever. He called me up about 9 months ago, and he said, Joe, you always said that to me. And I said, yeah, I know you were kidding, but I want to ask your permission. I said, for what? And he said, to make a statue of you. I said, you're going to make a statue of me? And he said, yeah. He said, I want to make it, and it's going to be called the Cut Man, and it's you all the way down. We're going to acid etch into the bronze my tattoos even. And it's like an action one of you working. And I was like, you think you needed to ask if you could make a freaking statue of me? I said, Jesus Christ. My wife is hearing this, and she took a tape measure. She's going to the front door going, I got to call a contractor. We got to make, your head ain't going to come through the front door. So I said, what the? And they said they want to do it, take it around on like this international tour before it would be put somewhere. And I was like, okay. It was like, but, and I said, and then I saw him again after that. And I said, what do you got? Some weird thing with guys named Joe? And he's like, why? And because he was supposed to get the one for Joe Frazier.
Right.
But his was a monument, like a wall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they just wanted a statue. And in that monument, though, it had all Philly legends at the time. And this was like 20 years ago. And they had me in there. So he said, I always felt bad that didn't get made because you would have been immortalized there. Right. And I said, well, but I said, what do you got? Some weird thing with guys named Joe? I was like, he goes, yeah, I didn't even think of that. He was like, I said, yeah, you got, but he said, he'd known each other forever. And he said, I was like, well, whenever you're ready, and he's got a studio that I got to have to pose for it, and I think they're gonna make a mold of my cookie, like a gorilla cookie, out of my face, and, but
like a busk,
but hey, it's great,
where are you gonna have it put?
I don't know, probably somewhere for pigeons to shit on, but I have no clue, what I mean? Like, maybe put it at Fifth and Olney where I used to shine shoes when I was a little kid. Like, and who the hell knows? I don't know. Right. You know what I mean? But and you're dying, right? And then let's see. I got what else I got? I got the end of the month, January 31st. I got to drive out to Youngstown, right? Youngstown, Ohio, right? And who's the home of that of?
Franz Jaworski. He went to Youngstown State.
He went to Youngstown State. No, Boom Boom Mancini. Right.
All right. Nice.
They're having an amateur boxing event, real big, huge event. It's USA versus England. Okay. Right. And I helped to arrange some of the stuff for it or whatever. So they asked me to be there because they're gonna have Boom Boom Mancini present me with an award.
Oh, nice.
What the award is, I have no clue. It's probably who the hell be awarded for who the hell wants to go to Youngstown.
Right.
These have bumper stickers said the last one out of Youngstown, turn the lights out, But I don't know, who knows if I make it back,
You'll
but it's back. They have it in a big arena and everything, and it's a really big, it's a really big deal. And
Youngstown.
Boom Boom put me in touch with these guys, and they came into town, and they actually showed up to my induction in Baltimore. I was surprised. Guys came all the way from Youngstown. I just practically met them only a few times, and but the guy running there was originally from South Philly. So so I mean, that should be a really good event, and like I said, I'm always somewhere doing something,
You don't slow down.
No. And I recently got sight unseen, got hired by Gloucester Catholic High School in Jersey, right? Mm-hmm. They read an article about me. The daughter of a promoter I work for the cage fights, his daughter goes there, so they cast him. You know this guy? They said, yeah, he's my cut man. He's like, why? And they said, well, we need more athletic trainers. We were thinking about, we want to hire him. An athletic trainer, they mean, the guy on the side, basketball game, football game, hockey game, whatever,
like
wrestling.
The athletic
get hurt. Director. Yeah, when they get hurt, you patch them up, whatever, So I'm like basically the cut man trainer, whatever you want to call it, for their for the games. Like I said, last night I had when I said we couldn't do it last night because I had a wrestling. Mm-hmm. That wrestling I had to go, so You
Right.
know, really, it's just most of it's just going and watching, hockey or wrestling or whatever, basketball. I got to do some basketball games this weekend for them. So I
All right.
said, hey, what the hell? If I can make, they give me a list and say which ones you want to come to, and if I can make it, I make, if not,
Right.
and it pays, pays a decent wage. What the hell,
Right.
yeah. But
Nice.
at least my skills go to something, I guess.
Hey, nothing wrong staying active.
No, nah, yeah. I'm like a shark. If I stop moving, I would probably die.
Right.
Yeah. But last thing I like to do is sit around the house.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, it's been an adventure, an honor and hearing
Nah,
every.
yeah, like you said, we have to do it again. It'd be great. Get those other guys involved, and yeah, that would be cool.
Do you talk? I mean, do you keep in touch with Philly sports guy at all? Occasionally.
I haven't seen him in a while. Trying to
Matter of
remember.
fact, I'll probably see him down the Eagles game this week.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We just mention that what we had what was called Claw, the Coliseum League of Arm Wrestling, and he used to arm wrestle for us. And
I
yeah,
did
Yep.
not know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, done all kinds
But
of shit.
I'll get this thing together. I'll get Tornado,
Yeah,
Philly sports guy, and you, and we'll probably could do a 5-hour show.
right. We've been here for a while.
That's all right. No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, this is great. Hey, I always can talk.
Right. Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's why the nuns used to beat me so much.
I got hit a couple times.
Yeah, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Plus,
Back
I was
in the
always a
day.
wise ass. Yeah,
Right. Better than being a dumbass
right.
or a
Wise
smart
ass.
ass.
Yeah, dumbass. No.
Now,
But
Joe, where can everybody reach you?
um, mostly if they want it is Facebook. I'm old school, man. I mean, I didn't even know I had an Instagram thing. Somebody had to tell me. Figured
Right.
They're like, yeah, you're
Oh.
on Instagram. I am. I don't know.
Well,
Somehow
Facebook and Instagram are, pretty. I
Yeah.
believe owned by Meta, so
yeah,
pretty
Yep.
much connected.
but yeah, mostly that way. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then if they're really looking for me, show up at any fight in the area, and I'll be there.
Right. Well, Joe, it's a pleasure. We'll do it again soon. Like I said, we'll get Tornado and Philly sports guy
Yeah,
in
that'd
on
be
the
cool.
act, and
Yep.
we'll just talk Philly
Yeah.
to the fullest.
Yeah. Well, if you get Tornado to dress up like he does, you get the sports guy.
He'll definitely do it.
Maybe I'll dress up like Rocky. And
There you go.
when I was a professional wrestler, that's what I did it as.
Did
They
you
had
really?
me. Somebody said you got to be Rocky. So yeah, I wore the fedora,
Right.
a butterfly stitch, the gloves with no fingers, the leather jacket, and the gray sweatshirt. And what did the gray sweatshirt say? Didn't say the Italian Stallion. I was the Palermo Pony.
I think I remember you talking about that too.
Yep. And the only wrestler to ever retire undefeated. Why? Because Rocky's got to win in the end. I have guys
Right.
like King Kong Bundy and Jimmy Superfly Snook, and they're throwing me all over the fucking place. And
Right.
and then somehow they start playing the music, and it's and somehow I come back and like choking somebody out or throwing them out of the ring.
Right.
But yeah, as one, I tell you, you get hurt doing that though. I got hurt
bet.
doing that more than fighting. I mean,
was it?
the outcomes are set up, but the
Right.
rest of it's not.
What did Rocky say about having his nose broke?
There's
37
64
fights.
I never had that nose. It's very rare, It's very rare. I got guys biting on it. I got chewing on it.
Right.
Booms. It's very rare. I'm very proud of that, They had to put that in there because that was a beak.
Right.
That was like, you never got punched in the face once. And the guy who led with his, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the first thing is your nose is broken. How's it been?
Cool.
Is it as bad as Mickey's? That ain't
Cool.
that horrible.
Call a cab to take me to the bathroom.
Yeah, from the bed. That's the truth, though. That ain't no
Yeah.
lie, man. The day after the fight, oh my God. I didn't even, I had to go to a wedding a day after the fight, a day or two after the fight, right?
Holy shit.
And I was with my wife, and me, my wife, my mother and father were walking in the church, and the steps are like this. And I'm like, and like when I had woken up that day, my ribs were so banged up, all bruised up.
Jesus.
You know, I'm like, I could barely breathe right. And I'm trying to get up the stairs. And my mother's, what's the matter with him? He's like, no, he's all right. See, he did that fighting last night. And she, because she never won, you know. The only time my mother ever showed up to see me fight was when I fought Tex Cobb.
Oh,
She
wow.
was like, this is what you do. And I'm like, oh, Mom. I'm like, you know, but yeah, my grandmother made me change my name. She was so mad. She saw me. I was in a fight on the Bath Daily News in a picture, and I had my last name was across my trunks, like everybody would always do. And she's like, "Wait, I don't like that. That boxing's no good, and that's bad. Looks bad. Our name. I was on. Your grandfather wouldn't like that." And I'm thinking, "Oh my God, my grandfather was tougher than shoe leather. He would love that." You know what I mean? But I went, "Okay, so I'll just be Joey I then instead of you know." So yeah, but yeah, the day after, I mean, yeah, he's right. Like your hair hurts, your eyes hurt, you know. Yeah, you really are.
I bet
your arms feel like lead, you know, because you had them gloves on all night, and you just now it's you know you feel like you're walking in mud, you know. And then any little like God forbid, like my alarm clock was always a radio. Because if it was any kind of bell, I'd be like, you know, you could, especially after a fight, then you're like, whoa, I got to get out there, you know. It's you know, yeah, but. Yeah.
All right, my man. I appreciate your time, and we'll do it again.
So I'm honored you asked me to be on, man.
Hey, this was great. All right, well, everybody have a good weekend. Go Birds.
You too. That's right. Yeah, let's make sure they can keep going forward.
Right.
All right, and you keep on punching.
You too.
Thanks, pal.
You're welcome. Have a good weekend.
All right. See you soon. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You too.
All right.
Philly streets got a story to tell. Golden sun breaks the Liberty Bell. From the Trattoria to the stoop outside. Feel good vibes in the city's pride.
Fuji's Philly flair. Oh, it's everywhere. Good news flying like hands in the air. Hip hop grooves with a twist so rare. Fuji's Philly flair. We're living the